They assumed where we filmed it was the real video store. I'm like, I wish, but no, we shot in Hamilton. Destroy my store. Daycare.
Oh yeah, right. It was all shot in Hamilton. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so where?
Welcome to the EST Hangout.
This is the EST Hangout, and today's guests are... Five.
Oh, we're here.
Sorry.
All right.
Yeah.
Thanks, Trev.
We're
off and running.
I said 5 seconds.
I thought there was an intro.
I played it.
Oh, you already played.
No music?
No, we don't hear. Well, we can't hear it.
All right. Beautiful.
How's it going, everybody? Matthew Awanek is not here. Tom Gazzola is not here. So I am Reid, and I am in today for those guys doing the hangout. YouTube Trev is doing all the technical work, and he's going to sit right here and join the conversation. Adam Scorgie is just walking in, a man I've had on my shows for several years. Noted filmmaker. Dusty's bringing more coffee, by the way.
Perfect.
So you will be very,
coffee,
you'll be very caffeinated. Yeah. So you just to be talking to the side of these mics, right, Trev?
Okay.
That always confuses me. And also here, and I have to say this, not the curler, Kevin Martin. So Kevin Martin, I'll just quickly, I'm going to let you talk, Trust. I talk a lot, guys. Sorry, by the way.
Okay, Reid.
Well,
That's
Scorgie's,
no
You're the professional.
Pull this in. Pull this in. Kevin Martin owns and operates, and he'll give the full story. The Lobby, it's a video store. It's on White Ave. It's in the basement. And I often, for several years, I have referred to you. And maybe to the point where people were thinking, does this person actually exist? Reid says there's this guy. His name is Kevin Martin. But it's not the Kevin Martin who curls and that he has interviewed. So we'll start with you. Tell us the story of the lobby.
Well, Reid, it's a long journey of magic and cinematic goodness. But no, yes, I have owned the last video store in Edmonton. It'll be almost 20 years this summer. And I know a lot of people like a video store in this day and age. I'm like, absolutely, because I don't know what else to do with my life. I'm here to be your cinematic guide to goodness. I do have a video store. You can still rent movies there. And I'm just there to keep the dream going, baby. I had no idea when I opened up I'd be the last shop in town, but now that I am, it's like being the Templar Knight from Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Somebody has to guard that grail, baby, and keep it going. Because I need to be there for the young generation. Let them know whatever they think is a good movie in life is based off something older and better. So let me guide you.
All right. So the last time I was there, once hockey gets going and we're into the swing, I don't drop by. But I was there in August. I was actually going to Long and McQuaid to buy a cable that I needed for this job, which by the way didn't work. I had to order one off Amazon.
Of course.
So I stopped into your store, and I you didn't even see me because it was so busy. You didn't have time to say. Later I texted you. I was like, "Oh hey, I was there today," and you were like, "What? You were in the store?" So I wanted to clarify. This isn't like one of these places where it's like, "Oh, if you go in, he'll be like, thank God I haven't seen a customer in 2 months." But so tell people the type of films you are providing to people.
Well, honestly, this day and age, it's the type of films that people tell me they can't find anymore. And that could mean anything from really outrageous B-movie cinema to, this is a true story, my number one best-selling movie in the last calendar year, I cannot believe I'm saying this, is Spice World, the Spice Girls movie. Why, you ask?
Really?
It's a true story. Because the movie is totally out of print in North America because of music rights. So I get my stuff from all over the world. But Australia has a plethora of this movie. And I post, I'm like, hey guys, I'm bringing in Spice World. We live in some nostalgia from my younger years. And then everybody just started messaging like, dude, can you get me that? I'm like, I thought I was the only weirdo. But yeah, I mean, no. So, I cater to everybody. And, it's getting weirder and weirder as the years go on. My store is like a freaky attraction show to the younger generation because they're like, this is a video store. Like, I heard about these from my parents or my uncle. And I've had the last year I've had 3 music videos shot in my store. Every time some cat comes in, they're like, is it cool to take pictures of your store? I'm like, please, God, do. Yeah, tag the store, though. Let people know. I've had wedding photos in my store, baby photos in my store. Obviously, we filmed in my store. There's a documentary crew that's been following me now for almost 10 years, making a documentary on me, my life, and the video store and working in the bar industry for 25 years. And I keep telling them, like, guys, my life is not that exciting. Like, honestly, it's movies by day, DJing at night, a lot of alcohol in between. And, but like, oh, we're just going to keep filming you. Reid, they literally followed me while we were filming the movie about my store. They followed me to Hamilton. They followed us to the world premiere down in Texas. They followed me, no, they weren't in England, but I'm like, when's this doc going to end? They're like, are you going to wait till I die? And they're like, maybe. I'm like, well, that's a great ending, guys. Yeah. It really is. But
pretty final.
I feel bad for documentary filmmakers because they're looking for that hook,
Takes a long fucking time.
Great
to do
transition.
docs. Yeah.
Dude, they must have 400 hours of footage on me. I'm like, is my life that boring? You haven't been able to put an 80-minute thing together yet? Yeah.
But that's a great transition to Adam, who, if people don't know him, he has produced numerous documentaries. The Jordan Tutu documentary that was one of that. It's all a blur. Was that November we went and saw?
Yeah, premiered in November, but then we've made some edits since then. So it's going to be releasing commercially this fall. We're going to do the festival tour and a few commercial releases. Right now, we're actually looking to do the first red carpet kind of premiere up in Rankin. There's never been anything up in Nunavut like that. So logistically, it's tough to get up there and do that, right? Flights and everything. But that's Jordan's next big thing is we have to bring it home to where it all started.
Well, this is going to be fun because I think Trev, we'll have questions, but they're probably just going to wind up asking each other questions.
I like that. That's cool. Yeah, that's sweet.
So this is your first time talking to either of these guys.
Yeah, correct.
All right, but
yes.
you heard Adam on the show.
Yes,
a couple times. We had him on before Tutu, and then I want to get an update just to put some not finality, but there was Adam was on my show with Jay. I want to say 3 weeks ago about a youth soccer team.
Yeah, my son's team.
Your son's team. that was fundraising, and the money went away.
The coach
now I know
stole
we
the
still
money,
have to be careful because of legalities and out like. This
we're sold. So the coach has been formally charged.
So we can say the
You can say
name
his
of the
name now.
coach.
It's Randy,
okay, that's what I want to be careful
Randy
with. Okay.
Nodell was charged. We couldn't at the time because they were putting the investigation, so they could just say the money went missing. But he's been formally charged now with like 7 counts of fraud and uttering a false document. He stole just over $40,000 from the team. It was over time. The way. Oh, look at that! That's awesome. Wow, thank you.
Cool store. Listening.
I know it's dope, right?
I like it.
So before I finish, I just want to ask, are you last video store in Western Canada or just even in
Oh, no. There's my buddy Joe has one down in Stony Plain still, just in the city of Edmonton. But it's
That's
weird
cool.
because all of us video store guys, like all over like North America and Europe, we all chat with each other. There's like a group page on like, and every week it's like, sorry, boys, after 30 years, I got to throw in the towel. And it's just like, I'm like, honestly, if I had a wife or kids, I'd have to get a real job, but my cats are good. And, and plus, I've been working the bars. So it's like I said, close the store. Well, time to go work at the Black Dog down the street, but.
No, that's cool. I want to get more into that. But yeah, with my son's soccer team, what started off as a horrible story, thanks to Reid, and the city of Edmonton and the community was amazing. Like we had a goal right from the get-go. My wife was the assistant coach. My son, it was U11 soccer team. They'd been with this coach for 3 years. Had funneled the money, and we were planning to go to Vegas. They'd fundraised for 2.5 years, right? To put in perspective, I think I said this on your show, Reid. My son's 9. That's almost 1/3 of his life, right? They've been fundraising to have the money taken away, right? Which was pretty disappointing. The kids were awesome, though. Like right after we told them, they're like, "Can we start selling chocolates this weekend? Can we start fundraising?" We're like, "Hey guys, it's our turn to step up." So my wife and I convinced the team. Of course, I'm going to be brutally honest. We were pissed at first, right? People wanted the coach's head. And I was like, listen, that is such a long road and it's going to go nowhere. Let's put our energy into flipping this. I work in media. I had a press release ready the night we made the police statement and that we were talking to the parents. I said, here's how we do this. I'll send a press release out tonight. We'll flip this on a nice thing. I knew the Edmonton community would support. I didn't think they'd do it in 25 hours. I thought it'd be like 3 weeks of doing things. Like it was incredible. Like Evander Kane contributed. Like everyone, the president of the Mayor's Cup that we're going to in Vegas. He's waiving the fee next year. We had a travel company heard about it in the States, and they're like, "Hey, we'll do all. We usually take a commission. We'll book it all for you guys next year for free." Like we had another guy, Devron. He just was a soccer player and he was younger. And he's like, look, when my parents got me new shoes, we didn't have a lot, but when they got me new shoes, I felt like I was invincible. So I want to take your whole team out on Sunday. Bought them all new cleats. So what started off as a horrible story ended up turning into this awesome story of resilience and community.
So is it Randy? You said
Randy Nodell. He was charged.
He's charged. Has he? We just got to leave it at.
So he was charged, but he's already out with the promise to appear March 17th.
Okay.
Like I've learned frustration from the police officers here. Our legal system is incredibly weak on theft and white collar crime. Like it is a joke, honestly.
Well, and if people are wondering why, at first I was like, okay, what can I say? Because this is one of the first things you learn even in Nate.
Yeah.
When you talk about legal stuff, somebody being arrested, you cannot report them as being guilty.
No.
Right? There's a difference. Like that's
allegedly took this at the time.
So that's why I asked you.
No, and that's why originally I knew this too. Is that Reid, when I gave you the press release, we didn't put any names, right? We also didn't even put our soccer club or any of that. We just did.
Something happened.
We just said, hey, U11 soccer team was the money went missing. But no, he's formally charged. His name is out there. The media has been so awesome on this. I mean, obviously I work with a lot of them. So they text me like the moment they're like, oh, you'll have an update tonight. There was an arrest made. And then once they're arrested, they're formally charged, right? So then they can, but from there, he could claim hard times. He has an addiction problem, whatever. He'll pay $50 a month probably for 10 years. Like there's really no recourse. And this is what I told the parents. I've been through enough litigation and stuff. I was like, listen, going down that road is going to go nowhere. You're going to put time, energy, and frustration. The way we do this is we flip it and we make it positive, right? Let's not dwell on the negative. It's sad that he did that to young kids, an ultimate breach of trust, but let's show them what a community, and if we come together and focus on the right, glass half full or half empty, you can focus on what parts you want to. we focused in on half full, and man, did the city and the community ever come in to support.
Well, on I don't know if this is a lighter note, but it's when I got your email,
Yeah.
because you're very good at and you have to be, because what do you call yourself? A creative hustler?
Yep.
That's
That's
I
it.
call him a filmmaker, but he calls himself a creative hustler.
Nah, he's right.
But like Adam is good at letting people know what's going on, and then it's nice that you and I have a relationship over the years where you can just text me and just say, hey, one of us has to get in touch on October 20th because
Yeah.
we got to talk.
Yeah.
So I'll be like, yeah, okay, and then one of us will remember, and then you'll tell me, and then we'll schedule something for a show, right?
Yeah.
So that email, I'm like, okay, what's going on with his film career?
Yeah.
And then I'm like, what? Wait,
I
this is not a movie. Well, it could be a movie.
It could be a movie. Yeah, we went
But this
and
is-
no, that's where I knew right away. I told him my wife's like, let's flip this into a positive, and I knew I didn't expect, like I knew obviously working with you, and Edmonton is special that way for a big city in Canada. It has a really small, like, I know the media well. I knew they would come. I didn't think that quick. Like normally I send a press release in 48 hours. I start like, hey, I was busy, like get back. We'll talk about your film. When's it coming out? That morning at like 6 a.m., I'm getting the kids ready, and it's like ding, 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 ding. When can you do interviews?
yeah.
When can we come? Can you pull your kid out of school? I was like, wow, okay, I guess my son's not doing school. Like Beckham did no school that week because they're like, oh, we want to see some of the kids. And like, it was awesome to see. And again, we were watching the GoFundMe that night and just watching it just like we're in tears of joy seeing the city come together that way. And I think it just, young kids having the ultimate beach of trust from a coach like that really resonated with everybody. Because even if you're not a competitive athlete when you're older, when you remember great memories when you're younger, lots of people said, oh, I remember Mayor's Cup. Like when I played soccer, that was the best trip I ever went on in Vegas. My first time to the States. I can't believe the coach took that away from them. So the good news is now, as we raised all the money needed, so we're going in October.
Okay.
We're taking the
Awesome.
whole team and we're keeping the whole team together. They're moving to a new organization, but my wife fought with or battled, wouldn't say fought, but she just said, hey, I have to keep all these families together for at least 1 year. Can't split them up. They've raised money twice, right? We did it once. Like, I have to take them all to Vegas. I'm the assistant coach. I'll be the interim coach until we find another coach. And, you know, the league ultimately said, yeah, because we switch organizations, obviously after what happened, people are just not comfortable there. Nothing too wrong in the organization, just people wanted a fresh change, but they kept all 14 kids together. They're going to be playing this outdoor season, and then they're all going to go to Vegas in October.
Good.
And they're better off now where we were able to show them that, you know, again, focusing on the positive instead of dwelling on the negative, amazing things can be accomplished. And it was.
He's Adam Scorgie. That's Kevin Martin. That's Trev. I'm
Yes.
Reid. EST Hangout presented by Sentinel Storage, Canada's storage experts. More than 2 decades of helping Canadians through life's transitions. Canadian storage provider.
Look at that.
Sentinel.ca. Well, I'm not as smooth as Maddie because he reads them every day. These are new to me. So these guys are going to be with us till 11 o'clock. The Oilers have an optional morning skate. We'll keep an eye on, I guess, Twitter. Knobloch will probably announce the starting goaltender today. Cam Dineen was called up during my show yesterday on an emergency basis from the Bakersfield Condors. That does not mean he's going to play tonight. So you can call up a player on an emergency basis if you don't think you can dress a full lineup for a hockey game. Neither Ekholm nor Kulak practiced yesterday. Kulak was sick. Ekholm, we've heard him talk for almost a month. I don't know if you guys hear some of the interviews, but like he sounds hoarse. Apparently he's actually feeling okay, but that's the lingering thing is the voice.
The Viking thing.
And I think that if the Oilers farm team was in the same city, like some teams are, or closer, they wouldn't have called the Dineen up yesterday. They would have had something. So I would say I would expect that they won't need him tonight, but they needed to have him here just in case. So that's the update. Trevor, you're going to be watching stuff too on Twitter?
Yes, I will be.
I'm lost without my big laptop in front of me.
That is
And
fair.
are you watching the nasty chat?
I'm looking at the nasty chat.
And do we
I'm
have a
all
way to
over
check
the text line?
today?
Yep.
Okay, and you can text 780-218-9999.
Correct.
Thanks, buddy.
Yes, I got you.
What's the nasty chat? That sounds like
That's what we
our
just
live
call
chat.
the live chat on
Oh, okay.
YouTube. I think Dustin has a name for everything, right?
Yeah.
You know, it's never what it is. So the nasty. So if people want to submit questions for these guys, again, we got a guy who owns a video store. and was up until 4 a.m.
Yeah.
Working bartending.
DJing, calling
nice.
bingo numbers on punk rock night. Yeah, it's what grown men do. Whatever you got to do to pay the bills, right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Would you want to plug the establishment you were at?
Oh, last night. Let's see which bar did I work at last night. Oh yeah, the Tavern on White. It's a beautiful bar, best karaoke jam place in the city. But usually I work at the Black Dog, a block down the street.
So you're here on how many hours sleep?
About 4 or 5. I don't know. It's
Oh, it's not bad.
It's not bad.
Not bad.
Who
Okay.
needs sleep, baby?
Yeah,
you know,
it's
fine. At coffee by day, Jaeger by night. Just keep on rolling.
Well, and Dusty brought the coffee. There's
Oh,
one for
God
you
bless.
there, Trev.
Absolutely, yes,
Another
I'll dive into
Scorgie's
that.
going to be well caffeinated today.
That's okay. That's my drug of choice. I love being well caffeinated.
Hey, Reid, did they say you're starting at S for Anaheim tonight?
I haven't seen yet. No, their morning skate will be after the Oilers,
Oh,
so we
okay.
may not. We probably won't get that during this show, eh?
Nah,
No.
probably not.
No.
Why?
I'll
do
keep
you
you-
think,
Hey, just-
their
I'll be
goalie's
looking.
going to play for us? I
Well,
don't know about
depends.
that, Kevin.
Could you imagine if, let's say tonight, Oilers drop the ball. Let's say it's 55 shots for the Oilers. Gibson just stones the world. It's 2-1's a final. Like, somebody ain't leaving town in the morning. I'll tell you what.
Maybe it'll be a Tikkanen thing that he'll skate out in an Oilers jersey for the game.
Man, this is like,
do you remember? Well, you're old. You're old.
Oh
enough to
yeah,
remember that. Yeah.
And Tikkanen was one of my favorites. But I mean, the way it'd be great to have like a WWE heel turn or oh my God, can you believe it? Like in the middle of a game or getting traded. Yeah, I don't think it's not going to happen, but then be great. I know everybody wants to we need new goalie. I'm like, we need a lot more than that right now. So
So how are you guys? I'll ask. I'll start with you, Kevin, because you and I actually we see each other a lot, but we don't actually have time to talk a lot.
it's very true. You're always on the go,
I'm always on the go, or Zip is there,
Yeah.
monopolizing our time.
obviously.
What kind of a fan are you during a 5-game losing streak?
I missed it was getting to the point going to the Four Nations. I'm like, I didn't care about it. I think most was like, what is this going to be a glorified all-star game? It's only 4 countries, 3 games in. I'm like, this is our nationality on the line right now.
Yes.
We'll thank a certain person down south for making me care more about this than I probably thought I should have. In fact, we set up a projector at my video store watching I was going to call it the gold medal game, but the game,
Yeah.
and I remember because I didn't know what the rules are going to be. So I said before the game starts, like, please, God, don't go into overtime. And then, of course, it's going to overtime. I'm like, this is NHL rules. We got 15 minutes, right? Like, yeah. So right across the street from my store, my buddies, just all the bars in White Ave, my buddy's bar, Black Bar's across the street. I run over and he gives no crap about sports. It's just metal and movies in his bar. I'm like, I need 3 shots of Jagger now. He's like, for who? Me, and me. Game's going on. And I said, if I come back in this bar and I got a frown, I don't want to talk about it. Just keep pouring the drinks and keep whatever horn you got going on TV. If I come in looking gleeful, pour even more drinks. So obviously, that was amazing. I think we all knew what it was like when Canada won. It wasn't excitement. It was like relief. I'm like, thank God.
It was relief.
It was relief.
Yeah.
Because if the U.S. would have won, they'd be like, we own it now. It's our sport. And of course, because they lost, we don't even care about hockey. That's their mentality, right? But anyways, the 5-game losing streak, I was thinking about it. I mean, when we got the 4-game losing streak, I'm like, oh my God, it's the first time in Coach Nobby's career that we've lost 4 in a row. That means we're going to go on a 15-game heater. That never happened either. And then even the game we won against Carolina on Saturday, we're watching it, and I'm like, yeah, we won, but dear God, we had a power play, and they still managed to get a breakaway with 30 seconds left. Thank God for Pickard. So I don't know how I feel. It was like, do we just plug a hole in a boat, or are we back now? Are we back? But how did I feel, Reid? Not good. Not good.
Sorry,
at all.
buddy.
As we all know, being a fan of your local sports team, it's like being at times in a bipolar relationship. You have your ups, you have your downs.
Yeah.
I mean,
Exactly how it is.
we all remember
exactly.
Game 7 in June, baby. It was,
I was in Florida for that.
oh man, it
Oh,
felt
wow.
just like
was
06
there.
all over
Yeah.
again.
I was, we were filming. there. So I was pissed because I thought at first, right, everything like coming back from the 3-0 deficit, I thought they were going to do it and pull the ultimate Hollywood story. And if you remember, so we had been documented. So start of the season, 2/3 of analysts are predicting they're going to win the cup, right? Then they have like the worst start, I think, in franchise history, or one of the worst starts. And everybody's like, what the heck's going on, right? And then they turn it around, they get rid of Woodcroft, they bring in Knobloch, and they they tie the NHL record, right, to make playoffs. And we're like, okay. And then beating teams, everyone's like, hey, you're never going to get by Dallas. They beat Dallas. They were down against Canucks, which growing up in BC, that to me was like winning the Canadian Stanley Cup, because the Canucks fans, I wasn't in Alberta during the 80s, so I don't hate the Flames as much as I hate the Canucks. I cannot. My two favorite teams are, I am a diehard Oilers fan, and whoever's playing the Canucks is my next favorite team. I hate the Canucks. And their fans showed it with like their chants of F McDavid and stuff like that. Like I can't stand that organization. I'm not a fan. So when they went up, my phone was blowing up from Canucks fans, seasonal Canucks fans, ones that never. I'm like, dude, you couldn't name 4 players on this team, and you're texting me, right? I can't. So when we came back and won, I took the classier route. I just sent the looking eyes like this to all of them. I didn't reply to any of their.
Right.
Is there swearing on this, or is this a?
You can say a little bit. Say a little bit.
I'll stay away, but I had some really rude texts, so I just sent like the eyes, like, look what's happening, right? Just kept it classy, and then we're flying down to Florida. We're documenting this. I'm like, oh my god, like we are going to get to film this. We're going to make a doc on it.
Yeah.
I'm going to get to be there for the celebrations. Like, oh my god, my lifetime. I was too young to remember the 80s. It's going to be amazing. And I just kept thinking, like, when they were down, that they were going to get it back, right? And in the States, it really felt like the wrong team won, because like the culture of hockey down there, like they have cheerleader, and the cheerleaders were coming and high-fiving us. I'm wearing an NHL badge. So they're like going to high five. I'm like, no, I'm good. When Reinhard got the 2-1 goal, and then they come over like, no, high five. I wanted to say, get your hand out of my face right now. I'm not high fiving you. And then, we pull the goal. I'm just waiting. And then it doesn't happen. And I kept being like, no, they're going to add minutes or something. Like, and then as soon as we left the arena, you could not tell that city had won the Stanley Cup. We were staying downtown Fort Lauderdale. There's nothing. There's no like, go Panthers, go. It was brutal. And I think you saw it on the video, like Spit and Chicklets posted it, like them walking down like the main street, and there's like 10 people that knew. Nobody knew. It was like when they won the cup, it was like going down and nobody knew. Like it really felt like the wrong team won. The storybook ending didn't finish, and it was like 06, like, Oilers just make it in by 1 point. Every round, no one had them winning, and they kept winning and they kept winning. I don't know. Is Fernando Pisani's like, his heroics, is that the greatest fourth line heroics in playoff history? I don't know. It's 14 goals.
Well,
like
certainly,
it's up there with like
it's up there with
maybe
John
Drews.
Drews.
It felt again like it was like Carolina wins. Like, come on, like
it was. I heard the same thing when Tampa beat Calgary in 04. Like it's like, wow, the place is packed and they're sold out. Once you left that building, I guess about a block away, you'd never know they won anything. Like the city's like, did we win something? I'm like, yeah, some hockey thing. I don't know. To this day, like the Game 7 in Carolina and then the Game 7 in June, the minute I saw the puck going towards our empty net, I'm like, I left the building. I couldn't even. I've never seen the cup hoisted by the other team. I can't do it. It breaks my heart.
I don't blame you.
It's too much. Your hatred for Vancouver is hilarious. So 2011, right? Boston, Vancouver.
I cheered for Boston.
All white.
On my birthday, they eliminated them. They did me a favor on that.
You would have sworn White Ave that night. I was working at a bar called Filthy McNasty's. Game 7's on.
Filthy, man.
And man, after that game, like all of White Ave was Boston, basically. And I remember because we had like 8 TVs on or whatever, and then the riots happened, and I'm DJing, and everybody's like, you guys got like the fireplace station on the TVs? Like, no, that's downtown Vancouver. They're rioting right now. And like people are cheering for that. But yeah, I understand. Like I used to hate Calgary when I was a kid, but that's kind of gone now,
No, the rivalry is definitely, for me, because I grew up in BC and I was there during the dark days. So it was like just abuse by the Sedins, right? They would just like do 3-minute cycles in our zone, score. It was like, It was so bad, and the Canucks fan just relentless on me, right? Like that was the first time Canucks have been good in like their whole history, right? So it was like they just would. So I hate, and then same with I was there. I was watching Game 7 in Kelowna because I was still living there at the time, and everybody's coming and clapping in my face when Carolina's scoring. Now I don't know, because you know me in my film days, but I grew up in the bars. I used to box competitively. So when a lot of these guys are clapping in my face, it took a lot out of me to be like, dude, I will take you outside and I'll show you why I was a Golden Glove and Western Canadian champion real quick if you don't get out of my face. Like, right. But like I could, so for me, I can't, Canucks fan, even my close friends who are good Canucks fans, they will tell you that like we have the worst fans in the league. Like they are very flaky bandwagon, like they come on when the team's there. Like right now they're even saying it's kind of weird because since the Sedins left, which were they're super classy, I have nothing bad to say about the Sedins. When Ryan Smith retired and they made the whole team come out, I was at that game to come. Very classy individuals. I love Juice. He's one of my favorite. I hated him when we played against him, Biesca, but I love him now as a commentator. But since they've left, like Canucks are really trying to find their identity, and the fans don't really, so they're so up and down there. And again, when you saw kids chanting F McDavid, and I was like, wow, that to me is the pinnacle of your fans. Like you guys got lots of work to do on the culture of your fans. They're awful.
I had the luxury of doing pre and post all year last year, and I found out real quick, like come playoffs, it was the toughest thing. Losing to the Canucks, and I'm trying to be professional and whatnot, and I was a professional, but I came into EST as a fan of the Oilers. Yeah. And so when I'm seeing all this, I had to time out so many people after an Oilers loss in our nasty chat. Like it was crazy. I couldn't keep up with it. But part of me was just so ticked off. And then it made sense with the whole 2011 riot. But you bring up a good point. Like there's with the kid cheering all that. It wasn't good.
They're not, like, again, I have two friends that are like, they actually have a Canucks tattoo. Like they've been fans for years when the team sucked in the Bure days, and like, the days when they were the toughest team, when they had Gino Ochek, Donald Brashear, and Enrico Ciccone. They were like the team to watch for excitement. They didn't win a lot of games, but they were tough. And even they say, they're like, our fans are awful.
Yeah.
I feel as if, and this is just me, having lived in or near Edmonton all my life, I feel like Vancouver has replaced Calgary as the regional hated team.
Yeah.
And I actually feel the Leafs have replaced Montreal as the hated original six team. Not that the Leafs were ever popular, but when in the 80s, like they sucked most of the time. And the Canadians were still good, and there are a lot of Canadians fans, and there still are, and Thursday is going to be a great vibe. Yeah. But I feel, even when they made the final against Tampa Bay in the COVID year, which they had no chance of winning. Yeah. I feel like a lot of Oilers fans, and maybe I'm speaking, maybe I had the wrong vibe, but I feel like there were a lot of people who were like, oh, you know what? It would be cool if Carey Price and the Canadians
100%
as underdogs got this one.
100%, yeah.
Like nobody wants the Leafs to get one.
No.
The Leafs, hear the end of it.
Yeah, the Leafs, I would 100% agree with that assessment. And for me, having in the Docks, I've worked with so many great, like Jerome McGinley has got to be one of the nicest guys to ever play. Like he used to train in my boxing club. That guy's just even though he'd light up the Oilers, love the guy, right? Brian McGrattan, one of my favorite tough guys ever, like huge Calgary favorite, right? With his whole salute and the whole
favorite for sure.
Like awesome guy. Like I don't have any hatred against Calgary. I wasn't there. I mean, even we worked on the Connor McDavid doc, and I'm trying to think who's the defenseman that
Giordano.
Oh, Giordano, he was very remorseful. He's like, man, I didn't want to do that to the best player in the league, but you're also trying to keep your position. You don't want to get burned around the outside, right? You're trying to. So it's just not there. The Canucks, unfortunately, their fans drive. And you see, like, it's a tough market. Everybody would talk about how bad Edmonton's market used to be, but not now. Like, people want to play here with the arena, the culture that's built here. That has shifted. Like, no one seems to care about the winter now of what they built. Vancouver's tough. Look at what they got going on. Like, PD's about to be the next Nail Yakupov here, but with a bigger contract, right? Like that guy doesn't look like he wants to play hockey anymore, right? Like he is not happy. He needs a big change there. Like he has something like 8 shots in the last 11 games, whereas Miller's killing it.
Miller
for the
Rain.
Yeah.
Then
I don't hate Miller anymore. It's
no,
weird.
Yes, weird. I don't hate him.
He's
I'm rooting for him.
He's a hell of a player.
Yeah, he's a hell of a
good player.
It's even again. I talked to one of my best friends. Vic is probably the biggest Canucks fan on the planet. And he's the only guy I know that's been thick or thin. And he always says, he's like, oh yeah, I love how like no one's there when we suck, right? And he's like, when we were at the Sedins, everybody was a fan. He's like, no, nobody's wearing their jerseys again, right? He's like, so even he says, he's like, our fanship is awful.
It is weird though. The two teams I do hate the most are the Canucks and the Leafs, right?
Yeah.
But there was a time in my life where I actually cheered for both teams, and there was no social media back then. And I think social media now, you get, because you hear a lot from the other fans, it makes you hate. I remember we accepted the fact early 90s, the earliest we're going to a transitional year, 93, 94, we were brutal, right? Yeah. So I actually rooted for the Leafs that year with Dougie Gilmour, Andrechuk, Glenn Anderson, Potvin and Ned. How could you not, right? And the Gretzky not called penalty screwed that up. We could have had a Toronto-Montreal Stanley Cup final in 93. That would have been brilliant. And then with the Canucks, when they took on the Rangers, how could you not like Kurt McLean, Pavel Bure?
I cheered for the Rangers that year. That was the New York Oilers. That's what I did.
Messier, Bukaboom, McTavish, Graves. Was Anderson? No, Lowe.
Anderson was there.
Yeah,
Lowe was there.
Yeah. Missing a couple guys here.
I know because we're working on a project right now. I can't reveal just yet, but I know Lowe was there because they're one of the few that won.
He won six.
He won six. Messier won
right?
5. Yeah.
Well, and then Messier got
Messier won six. They both won there.
Right. Yeah, that's right. And then Messier did you a favor. He went over to the Canucks and he destroyed the franchise. So, hey, he did nothing.
Yeah, that's weird, eh? That was part of his career. It's like, But that year with the Rangers, no, that was a long time ago. I was hoping for the Canucks because
they were the underdogs.
Because the Rangers were sort of that buy the cup team, right? They spent a lot and see, I'm an exception in 2011. It's not that I wanted the Canucks to win. It's just like when I was a kid, I liked Oilers and I liked Canadians because my dad, my dad was born in the original 6. And even though he was in Southern Ontario, he chose the Habs. So then when I'm a kid in the 70s, right, the Oilers and Canadians aren't in the same league. Right. And then in the 80s, they're both going to at least the semifinals, if not both, almost every year, even though they never. So when it gets to Boston, I generally have very little sympathy for Boston.
I'm with you. I never cheered for Boston other than that year. I cheered, but it's interesting because and it's funny because obviously, Reid, I did a doc called Ice Guardians, all about fighting.
Well, so that's how we first met.
Yes.
Oh, really?
Yes.
That's odd.
It's on DVD still.
Which it's cool because I was bringing this up the other day. I had to show because it's funny how quickly things change. People didn't know how iconic that is. I'm like, go Google top 10 hockey documentaries ever made, and Ice Guardians always in that conversation, even with these big Amazon pieces and stuff now. The thing I think a lot of them are missing where Ice Guardians can transcend time is like we had legendary tough guys from all the teams, so you don't have to be a fan, whereas when you do these period pieces they're doing now, they're getting you behind the veil, but they're very timely, right? Like you watch them and it's cool, you get all this access, but really a year down the road, you don't really want to watch it again. Maybe there's a few characters you want to see, but the Boston one is an interesting one for me because it's whenever you hear that, you don't need toughness in the game, that 2011 is an interesting one because when they hit Horton, that woke Boston up. That was like the worst thing. And not that it was a deliberate like injury, but that was when Boston was like, okay, they might have more skill on paper than us. They might have the higher score, but they're not more physical than us. The next game, they dress Scott Thornton. Scott Thornton draws a penalty in like the first period. They don't score, but then shortly after that, Boston does score. Changes the whole momentum of the game, right? And it's those little plays that you don't always see that the enforcer, that physical guy can do. Even now, right? Yes, the game has evolved, and to have just a role for an enforcer there's just about done. But every team would love to have a Milan Lucic in his prime, right? That can score and stick up for his team. Or it's like why they brought in Evander Kane here. Like you want not just the physicality they bring, but you want even that swagger, that like when he was blowing the kiss to Calgary and stuff like that, you need a little, and I think that's right now a big thing of what the Oilers don't have. They don't have a little bit of that FU, right? We're the best players out there.
So let me ask you guys that, because that has come up. It was either Rashog or Gregor was asking in the scrums yesterday about how the Oilers have a low hit total.
Yeah.
you guys have listened to me. I'm like the NHL stat sheet.
Yeah,
Okay, except for block shots, grain of salt.
Yeah.
But I think visually, they're not as beefy as they were. Even Vinny, like just the size and like how Woodcroft would call him kelp.
Kelp.
So or seaweed or whatever you call it. Yeah. So are you guys concerned about the Oilers' physicality? And because I know Jay and I sometimes like I don't buy the criticism of Knobloch. Oh, he's too monotone in interviews, and I'm always like, don't worry about that.
Yeah.
And he called his team passengers, and he said they were going through a fragile time. Like he says stuff.
Yeah.
But there is, we do get like, do they not hit because he doesn't, like Jay and I talked about that yesterday. You know how you see when they go out the lineup, like, okay, Davo, Leo. And then the coach will usually say, okay, guys, remember, is Knobloch the type to say, remember, we stay in our positions and we support each other, where some coaches say, remember, they're in our building. We're going to show them how we play in Dallas or Omaha. Like,
yeah, I mean, I'm under two thoughts. They went to Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final last year, so they know how long and like grueling a season can be. And they had another wishy-washy start to the season. I think we were 0-3 to start the year. I'm like, oh god,
and then
here we go again.
5-5-1 or whatever in October. Yeah,
it's like I'm trying to be positive and think they're saving it for the playoffs. Some of the boys are gonna why abuse your body now? I mean, it still breaks my heart. If Evander Kane would have been healthy, finish off that Florida series, the cup would have been ours. I truly believe that. That would have been the difference.
Yeah.
Like what was the last game he played? Game 2?
I think he played
the finals. He played
first 2 and 3.
Did he play game 3?
And you could see though he was at
But
like
he didn't-
10%.
He wasn't really playing.
He wasn't effective.
He was
most
out
of
there
the-
more
yeah.
to be, try to put some intimidation, but it gets out with social media so quick. Everyone knew he was injured, right?
Yeah.
So they're like, even when he's trying to be that intimidating, like, hey, I'd like do that again, see what happens. Like, what are you gonna do? Like, cripple over here? Like, everyone knew
Get
he
to
had
anybody. You could see he couldn't.
He couldn't.
Have the thrust
He
to go
didn't
hit,
have
finish a
like
check.
Couldn't sit,
the hernia and
stand
stuff.
down
He
on the
didn't
bench.
have. No, I'm with you, and this is the thing that always comes up is yes, the game's evolved and it's changed, but in the playoffs, we know, Reid, you probably have all the stats on this. Penalties do not get called like they do in the regular season. It's the biggest frustrating part with hockey. It's probably different than any other sport is that what's a penalty all season, all of a sudden, McDavid's got sticks getting hooked up his jersey, like out his mask,
That's
in
just
his
good
helmet.
hockey. That's
and
good
they're like,
hockey.
oh, that was a good play. And it's like, he's getting, like, you've even heard refs off the record saying, oh, we'd have to call a penalty on him almost every play, so we don't do it. So yeah, you're going to need that physicality, and Florida had it with like Kachuk, and then even like Barkov is a big, thick,
big boy.
physical player,
Well, that
right?
Forsling
Like,
was a revelation.
like
in the playoffs
it
last
is.
year,
So you're going to need that, and that's where I do wonder if like the Oilers are a little light this year than they had last year. You still got Ekholm, the Viking back there. It was one of the best pickups we've ever had, but it's like I do. Vinny was a soft big guy. I loved him. He was a great interview, but he was a soft. But like, it would be
But
great.
he's in the way though.
Yeah.
And that's even Fogle. Like Fogle didn't hit a lot of guys, but he was a bigger body. So when he forechecked, at least he was on the puck.
Yeah.
Like a little,
And
not
he's
as good
fast.
as Hyman, but a little.
Fogle was like wicked. There would be times he'd move, and I'd actually be like, "Oh, is that
seven?
McDavid?"
The
And
seven,
and then I'm like, "Whoa, that's Fogle!" Like,
It was like watching McLeod.
Yeah.
Like, is that McDavid? No hands. It was Marchand hands at the end of the play there.
A couple of texts to get to. No name text right now. Hey boys, tell Kevin I miss him spinning the punk at Filthies. Rest in peace, rest in peace, Filthies. Cheers, everyone. Kevin is a beauty. And then Gold Medal Mark. Hey guys, can you ask Adam about the Biff Naked doc in the works?
oh shit, okay, yeah,
Oh,
that's
so-
damn.
so-
Yeah,
so-
That's
Yeah.
not the secret project.
No, no.
Okay,
Biff-
we can talk. Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So Biff is I watched the Fine Cut the other day, and it's spectacular. You want to talk about a woman that's had a career that should be more celebrated in Canada? My God, that's so. To answer the question for the viewer, it will be releasing. We're hoping to premiere at TIFF. Which is Toronto International Film Festival, this fall, and then it will release commercially after that. It'll be on Super Channel and all the platforms this fall. And Biff is going to do a big tour where we'll screen the film, and then she's going to perform 1 or 2 acoustic songs afterwards. So we're doing a big tour all across Canada. I can tell you, Biff is one of the sweetest, most down-to-earth, as her psychotherapist said, she's I don't want to swear, but an effing unicorn of how amazing of a person she is. She really is a sweetheart to work with. She's been one of the best people I've ever worked with, and her story is incredible. For those that don't know, I'll give you a little brief. Like, I knew Biff mainly when this story came. I was like, oh, I know Spaceman. I love myself today, right? Like, that's all. I remember listening to it, and I remember seeing the video, but I didn't know much about her. But so Biff is one of, like, she is revolutionary in Canadian music because she was really the first tattooed, real, unpolished musician in Canada that came through. And every time she was about to break in the United States and stuff like that, she had a huge deal with Sony 550. She's going to be on the same label, Celine Dion. But ultimately, the lead there, who was a female, was like, I can't put this tattooed girl on the same label as Celine Dion. So right when the record's about to go, they yanked it on her. Then in radio in Canada, she's killing it on Much Music. She's getting more requests than anybody else. She's number 2 for Spaceman, right under the Moffats, right? They bench her because the head of radio, another female, is like, I can't have this tattooed girl being like, that's not what I see Canadian music. Canadian music at the time was Alanis Morissette. Yeah, like it was not her look. So Biff and her manager, which they have a magical relationship, it's legendary, Peter Carroll, he says, no, we're not taking this for an answer. Now, normally when a record label is Sony 550 drops your record, and they put all this money, it was ready to go, right? They'd given her all this creative freedom. That was Ibificus, right? Mm-hmm. They drop it last. They went down to California to go celebrate, and when they were supposed to be pumping champagne and celebrating, they said, we're pulling the album, right? They decided to go release it on their own. They said no. Peter said no. And like, the whole team's devastated. Biff's crying. She's like, that's the end of my career. And Peter said, no, we're going to go release it ourselves. They bought back the album, released it themselves, went platinum. The only female to do that in Canada.
That's pretty
right.
cool.
To do that on her own. Yet here, this tremendous, and man, she has battled cancer. She had a stroke. She has gone through everything and still tours to this day all the time. How she's not in the Order of Canada or in the Canadian Rock Hall of Fame, like that has to come. That's what we're pushing from the doc. This girl is a true legend in Canada and what she's done. And there's no other musician that has done what she's done in Canada. Her story's incredible.
Oh man.
And she is an absolute sweet. I sincerely mean that. I've got to work with all, like, from athletes to everybody else. So we had to go do a pickup shoot here in Edmonton. So I flew her in Edmonton in November when it was freezing.
Oh.
No complaints. No problem. We'll come to Edmonton. I want to make the dog. We didn't even find out till 2 days. She had a killer migraine for 2 days. And we did the opening shot, and we had her and her manager talk about how Spaceman came to be, because he literally said, we're going to write a song together. And they had the melody, right? But then it was something about catching a tiger's whiskers. And he goes, that is the worst lyrics I've ever said. I am leaving you in this room until you come out with lyrics that are... But then she wrote her hit. And as soon as he came in, he said, that's a hit. And then so we did all this. She didn't complain. I didn't even know she had a migraine till like 2 days. Her manager was like, oh my God, like her eyes were, that's why she couldn't remember the lines, because normally she's so great with it. Zero complaints. That lady is, I have nothing it's an honor to tell her story, and the fine cut is fantastic. It had me cheering. It had me crying. It is super powerful. It made me, like a good doc does music, it made me hear her music in a different way. So now I remember it, and it's a weird one to go to the gym to, but I was playing Lucky at the gym. I played it like on repeat the whole time, because now I understand that's about when I know it's not your typical gym song, right? But you understand that she battled cancer, and she looks at cancer as a gift that was given to her because she helped so many other people through it, right? And Biff really became, and George Strombolopoulos says this beautifully in the film, he says, she really became that look, and her music became for all the women in Canada and North America that caught wind of her as the one that didn't fit into what the stereotype wanted at that time. She became their role model. It's like, here's this girl that has a much harder look than she is, but she's actually very sweet, and her music's not that hard, although she looks hard, beautiful, takes no shit. So when you hear her music again, I am listening to it in a totally different way, because everything she writes about is what happened to her. Like, even one of her first big songs, I can't remember what it's called, where she's in the closet and they shot it it's her first big hit, but it was about how she got gang raped in Manitoba. And she writes about all of her music is what was happening to her at the time. Right. Wow. Chody's about her husband and how they split up, and she had an abortion, and nothing is off the table with her too. She's brutally honest and an amazing, amazing person. Canada's lucky to be able to call her one of their musicians.
I remember seeing her at Rebar here in Edmonton.
Yeah.
96, I want to say. And she used to, she knows Edmonton. She's played here several times. First time I ever seeing her, she wasn't even singing. She was in the music video Moist.
Yeah.
I think it was Believe.
Yeah.
And she's getting tattooed under like, who is that? I can't believe that they thought it was, she's tattooed, so she's no good for our image. Like,
that shows you how much times have changed, though, right? But it's bizarre.
Crazy. I know it was the 90s.
And it's crazy because we had these, and we're going over it, and we interview, I think, what's her name? Devlin, but we have people from the industry saying how she's like, it takes grit to do what she's done. Because nobody, normally when your record gets dropped, like that's it. Your career's over.
You have a name for the doc yet?
We're just calling it Biff Naked because there's only one Biff Naked, right?
That's awesome.
Yeah. We looked at other names like Moment of Weakness and stuff like that, but then One of a Kind, Biff Naked, but we just saw it on point now. And this comes like as a producing thing too, is like if you Google it, you just want it to be the first search engine, right? So it's like Bisbing. We just called it Bisbing because there's no other Bisbing, right? And you call it, so Biff Naked is just hers, Biff Naked. There might be some tagline like the underlying story or whatever, but just Biff Naked.
Okay, so that's in Toronto when?
So we're hoping, we haven't gone in. This is the thing that I'm 0 for 11 at Toronto International Film Festival. So I'm hoping one of these days I can knock it off my bucket list.
0 for 1.
Yeah.
0 for 1. All right.
I have not got in there yet. So and it's bizarre because everyone always assumes like I've done Sundance, I've done all that, because my films have been commercially successful, which is unusual for docs, but I haven't been able to get the festival love all the time. There's a lot that goes into that in the festival. So we're hoping, because Biff now lives in Toronto, there'd be nothing more perfect than to have her there, have George Strombolopoulos as the host. It would be a smash hit for the festival. But I'm hoping, sometimes they do themes, and last year seemed to be the music because it was Tragically Hip last year, Elton John, and I think Bruce Springsteen's like The Boss, all their docs premiered at TIFF last year. So I'm hoping this year it's Canadian music. Like, even though the hip was there last year, we'll see.
Awesome.
Oh.
So sorry, that's a long answer, but I get super passionate.
That's why we have you guys in.
No,
you
but
you guys love what you do.
Yeah, I'm in a fortunate enough position, and clearly you're this. Like, if you didn't love it, like I pass on so much stuff now because I know how much. Like when you go through a documentary journey, it's a lot, right? And we had some creative issues with the director and stuff like. So every doc is very tough. Like it takes a minimum. That's what you're saying, 10 years. I'm like, cool. I know Ice Guardians was 8 years of my life, right? Like it takes, now I've learned how to make it. Ice Guardians was still when I was transitioning from making filmmaking a hobby to a business, but now I've made it a business. But even a doc, if everything goes right, is 2 years. Like you're filming for a year, you're editing for a year. Like
I was just going to ask the timeline for some of these.
Oh, and that's a doc. Try to make we made a feature movie, like an actual movie. Any one of that. Oh my God.
You got to talk about your movie, which I have seen. And you're outstanding in it.
Oh, thank you, my
One
friend.
of the funniest scenes in film history when you were propelled back by the creature and landed next to your beer cooler and mid-battle reached in for a beer. I still can picture that.
An 81-minute movie where my character has a beer in his hand the entire movie. Filmed over 15 days in Hamilton. I remember,
but you stayed true to character throughout the production, right?
So you know,
you were doing Strasbourg, right? You're staying in.
I get to set at 6 a.m. every day to put the makeup on, and I didn't know what the beer was. I'm like, okay, I kept cracking beers. I told people, anybody sees our movie, you can make a drinking game out of it. Every time I have a sip, you have a sip. Turns out they gave me non-alcoholic beer, and not only that, it was non-alcoholic Bud Light, and so I had to drink. I ended up drinking about 40-something cans of this stuff over the production. Luckily, there was a real bottle of Jameson in the green room in between takes. I went full Oliver Reid, Richard Harris on this. If you know those, a little bit of liquid courage in between takes, because for a guy that's not really an actor getting sent over to Ontario to walk into a set that's built after my real video store. It was that scene in Wayne's World where, like, you know, they're like, Wayne, it's like we're in your basement, but it's not your basement. And the difference between shooting a bunch of silly short films in my real store here at Edmonton and then getting this money to shoot a feature movie is, instead of just 6 or 7 of your buddies doing all the jobs, I get on set day one, and there's like 15 people behind the camera just staring at me, and they think I'm an actor. And I'm like, oh shit, this is a real deal. These guys worked on Netflix stuff, and I'm like, okay, don't blow it. So I felt like super imposter syndrome, big time. But after like 10 years of making shorts in my Real Video store, and then these guys in England, we pitched them, and they said, we love video stores. Here's some money. Go make the movie. And then 30 scripts later, and we had to shoot it in Ontario for like tax credit. Yeah. And 15-day shooting schedule. We had to shut down for a week because of COVID. Reshoots in Vancouver.
Oh, you shot during COVID?
Oh, yeah, 2022.
It's hard enough to make a movie with all that stuff.
Dude, it was brutal. We had to do COVID tests every day. Like, it was, and then we finally got a thing done, and our film got accepted to premiere in Austin at Fantastic Fest. At the
that's a great festival. Great, yeah.
Oh, it was really cool. Here's our little independent Canadian video store movie next to, like, you know, hey, they're showing the new movie with Peter Dinklage and Elijah Wood next to ours. I'm like, why are we here? And then the documentary guys were following me down there too, so I was double nervous. So anyways, Austin, Texas, I was like, whatever, man. If these people hate the movie, I'll never see them again. I don't even care, because it's a cultural thing. If you get it, you get it. It's about video stores and love of video stores. But we had the premiere in Edmonton here, and Reid was there. We did the Garneau, right? A week before the movie premiered, we're already sold out. Like 500 plus seats are all gone. And I'm thinking, now I'm getting nervous, because I'm like, these are the people that, like, I see on every day of my life. All of White Ave is in that theater. If that theater burnt down, White Ave's out of business. So I tried to open my real store of the day. It was a Sunday. The movie was playing at 7. It's 3 o'clock. I'm sitting in my real store. I'm like, to hell with this. I'm too nervous. Close up. I go down to the Black Dog. I'm like, let's go. Shots now. By the time I get to theater, I am loaded because I'm so nervous. And I remember my buddy Owen's projecting. It's like, Kev, you want a smoke break before the movie? I'm like, yeah. So he took me up to the roof of the Garneau. So I'm standing on the roof with a smoke, and the doc guys are following me there too. Because I'm like, finally, the doc guys who've been following me, they don't know I'm up here. And then my buddy Freddie Kurchek, who is doing the documentary on me, I was mic'd still. I didn't know that. So he kicks the door open and goes, aha, found you. And I'm like, damn it. He goes, I used to work here, man. I knew you were. So I get on stage and introduce the movie. And I'm just, Reid was there, I think. And I was incoherent, basically. Got all emotional and blubbery and shit. But it was cool. When the movie actually played, it was like our crowd. I ran a film festival here for 13 years called Dead Fest at Edmonton. It was like it's a movie they've already seen 100 times. It was like they were watching the Rocky Horror Picture Show or something. They were laughing at all the right beats. And that's when I knew our movie was very Canadian, because the jokes that landed here in Edmonton did not land in Austin. Like, really? The hockey jersey pull joke. The whole Beaver Lake Massacre, where we basically ripped off Rob Team, but we made it super Canadian, where like he was a misunderstood Goldie and his coach let him drown on the ice, and now he's back for revenge. But in England, they got that too. It must be a Commonwealth thing. I don't know.
Because you wind up fighting. What is it again? There's a haunted video cassette.
Yeah,
and you wind up fighting sort of recreations of classic horror movie villains?
we made the greatest Canucksploitation movie without realizing it.
Canucksploitation.
So it basically, the plot is about as stupid as can be. Young lady shows up returning her dad's VHS tapes because he passed away. Unbeknownst to me, my character, one of the tapes is the legendary Videonomicon. So it's a curse tape that looks like the Necronomicon.
No, Necronomicon.
I have to play it, of course.
I watched Evil Dead.
You know what's going on.
The Army of Darkness.
So I put the tape in, and all the movies that are in the other VCRs, they basically get sucked into the video store. So basically, it's Last Action Hero meets Quantum Leap.
That's kind of cool.
And we're stuck in the store, so I end up dealing with a Jason Voorhees knockoff, the Canadian version. End up dealing with a B-movie knockoff of like Chuck Norris meets Van Damme named Viper Jackson. A giant like Predator knockoff. And we have to get out of my store somehow. And it's up to me and my obsessive movie knowledge to get us out there.
How to navigate,
Yeah, so
that's great.
Predator can only see heat.
Exactly. Well, when the monster's in the store, I tell the young lady, I'm like, don't worry, it's only CGI. It can't hurt us. But yeah, we got the physical releases. It's in the store. I think it's coming on Super Channel in Canada here in June.
Nice. Super Channel's that's my go-to. They're for any listeners, I don't want to sound like a plug, but dude, support Super Channel. If you guys are sick of like the mundane, like just you know, the streamers are great, but they only go for the biggest things right now. Like I just had meetings with all of them, and this is why it's cool that guys like Kevin are still doing video stores, because right now the streamers are basically saying if it isn't the biggest names in Hollywood, like we're not interested. Like if it's not the Tiger Woods tells all or whatever, like to try to get anything that's outside of just what analytics will do is like they will not take the risk, right? It's become such a suit business like that. So Super Channel is the only independent broadcaster in Canada that isn't owned by a telecommunications giant. Yep. And they started right here in Edmonton by the Allard family. So support them. You can get them with an Amazon package now. You should definitely like,
nice. Okay.
If there's one you get them. Get them over Crave. Get them over the other ones because they've support. I wouldn't have a career without them. They're the ones that usually start all my productions. I sell to them. Like I get my federal and provincial tax credits, then we sell to the US afterwards.
Okay.
It's usually
He is Adam Scorgie, producer of numerous. How many at this point? Like dozens.
I have to actually. I think I'm like at like 15.
Jordan Tutu is
15.
the one. Is it just called Tutu? I always.
Tutu,
I just bad.
You can say Jordan Tutu.
I have him on, and I'm like, I don't learn the title. I'm just
No,
like, that's
no.
the one about that guy.
Yeah.
And then you did one about that guy, and I was like,
no, that's fine. We're up at because we did Danny Trejo, which is inmate number 1, but we learned like that one we should have just called Trejo as well. Like it.
Oh, okay.
You want to go with like Bisbing, Tutu. Yeah, Tutu. There's no other Tutu.
Who's the bodybuilder you brought?
Phil Heath.
Right.
And so we did Breaking Olympia. We had that title because it was all he was going to go hopefully tie Ronnie Coleman's record of 8 and then go break the record for 9. But then
that's what it was. Right.
He didn't win. He lost against Sean Roden, and then he got injured, and then we followed the comeback. But we still like the title, so it's
all right. So Adam, I call him local filmmaker, but really international filmmaker who lives in Edmonton. Kevin Martin, not the curler.
Not the curler.
Not the curler. If you're tuning in, like if you're not on the video stream, if you're just on the audio, and they're like, wow, I didn't realize Kevin Martin also worked in a video store. It's not the curler. The lobby, which we're going to talk more about. And, of course, Trev, part of YouTube Trev. I'm Reid, filling in for Maddie and Tom today. Maddie's off this week. Tom's getting ready for, we got the game tonight. So we'll have the GCL Diesel Oil Stream pregame show at 6. Oilers play the Ducks at 7. I'm keeping an eye on Twitter best I can.
Haven't seen anything
Not
yet.
a great
Nothing?
multitasker.
Nothing breaking.
I haven't seen if Knobloch has talked or said anything about
when's
the
the
line.
trade deadline coming?
Friday.
1 o'clock
Yes.
Mountain on Friday. So right at the end of the oil stream for us and at the start of Hernan and Gager show. Portions of this hour presented by the Hive Product Marketing, the official merch partner of Edmonton Sports Talk, promotional products that bring the buzz. Check them out at thehiveproductmarketing.com. You guys having a good time? You seem like you're having a good
No,
time.
it's a blast. I love this.
This is awesome.
Podcasts are I think I was doing it. You can this consider podcast, right? This
Well,
what
we're
radio,
live
radio.
too. Yeah.
But this kind of conversation is like I was listening to Rogan long before he became like the biggest and now the most hated or whatever it is. Like I worked with Rogan, like he was in my very first film, The Union, the business behind Getting High, right? And that was really the first time people had seen him outside of UFC. People didn't even really know he was a comedian. They knew him at that time. They were like, Fear Factor guy, right? That was what he was
News
known
radio.
for.
News
See,
radio.
you're
I'm old school, yeah.
Old school. You would know. I knew you would know, but
was
most
he
people.
the janitor or something?
Yeah, he was
Yeah, he was the
Yeah,
janitor in news radio. Yeah, a lot of people didn't know that he was a comedian, did news radio. They knew him when he was in the Union because he was the only like guy we could get that would candidly talk about cannabis and the corruptions of the law. So, and he has a famous line in there that's been spiraled, and there's memes all over, and they don't go to where it's. But he talks about nerfing the world, right? When he's like, you can abuse cheeseburgers too.
Yeah.
We don't go shutting down Burger King just because you can abuse something. I could take a fork and stab my eyeball. Should we outlaw forks? I could jump off a bridge. Should we outlaw bridges? Let's nerf the world, right? So there's like a meme that was all from the Union. People had seen him talking about. He was one of the only guys at that time when we filmed in early 2000s that was in the media that would openly talk about using cannabis, other than your cliche
How
like
long
Tommy
ago was this? Like,
Chong's
this has been
and
over.
Yeah.
This was
early
20 years.
2000s. Yeah,
Early
I
2000s.
had it in my store. I know
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
See, this
Yeah.
is great. Like the crossover between you guys.
Well, no,
that
the
you didn't even
Union-
know you had.
So it's interesting because the Union, when that sold, so I remember we sold that to Phase 4 Films, which got
Yep,
bought out by
that's-
E1, right?
yep, you got
and they originally took it as a deal. They're like, I have the email still from the president where he said, look, we're going to give you no money up front. We'll give you 65-35 split. We don't see this having any commercial value, but hopefully you can prove us wrong. And I knew this is right when social media, like I was building a huge audience on Facebook, but nobody knew what Facebook really was. It was MySpace was dying. Everybody was transitioning to Facebook. And I said, well, what would be a win for you? And they were like, this is when they did physical units. And they're like, oh, if we could do 10,000 units in the lifetime of this film, that would be a grand slam. We did 20,000 units in the first quarter because almost every video store ordered at least 2 copies. And that's when you used to have 5,000 in Canada,
Right.
5,000 in the US. So we did 20,000. And they were like, and the joke was, they're like, well, I did you a favor, Adam. And it's one of the only ones that's still paying a residual because I actually got residual checks for years for that one to pay down, like just pay back our budget. But we did get, like, it did very, very well. It was number 1 on lots of lists and a lot of video stores that get stolen, because it would get handed out as like an informational piece. It was The Union really became the film that parents would apologize to their kids for, being like, here I am smoking cigarettes and drinking and I'm yelling at you because you smoke cannabis, right? Like, and then it became so many people said, man, your movies would made my parents apologize to me because I smoked weed. And it did lead to the Liberals legalizing in 2018. They invited both The Union and The Culture High, which was the follow-up, to screen at Parliament Hill to get people involved.
Oh, wow.
And let's not get it twisted. The Liberals didn't do it to be like, we're doing a good thing. They were like, hey, we're getting thousands of emails and messages referencing this film. We can get the young voters. Right. Let's get
You did God's work, baby.
Yeah.
You just pushed him in the right direction.
But I did. That's always my thing. Is I played a small part because it was Joyce Murray that invited us out to Parliament Hill. When I first got the email, me and my director, we honestly thought we were getting we're like, this is a sting or a punk. They're like, Parliament Hill is inviting the cannabis doc guys to Parliament Hill to invite. We're like, yeah, right. But it came from like Senator Joyce Murray. We're like, okay, that seems legit. But I remember I went out there with my director and he goes, okay, Adam, I'm going to film. And if we screen in, because we make a lot of fun of politicians and that, right? And how they just go with the wind. And if it goes here, we're going to go where they voted something against something totally wrong. They voted totally against it 2 years previous and then they voted for it. But they're all laughing because they were like, oh, that's totally true. We do that all the time. But he was like, hey, Adam, if it gets really sour in there, I'm going to just say I'm the camera guy. Right. And you can just be the producer. I'm like, oh, way to back me, director.
Yeah,
right?
nice.
But then it went really good. Like they were asking me, it was like, even I remember the Liberals were really shocked that the Conservatives, like that it bipartisan came to view. They wanted to see, they'd obviously showed the analytics of how many letters, because they were still getting snail mail then and emails, like thousands had written saying, you need to see this film. Because we just put stats up there, right? That were constantly up there, that misunderstandings of cannabis of like, you know, we thought the same thing. It must kill hundreds of people. No one's directly died from cannabis, right? Like, of course, smoke it, drive, that's a different thing.
Yeah.
But like all these things and like, well, it must lead to addiction. That's what we're told. And we're like, actually, no, if you follow addiction, like it usually comes from circumstance and lower economic situations and you're trying to self-medicate, right? It isn't necessarily the drug that is driving you there, which is Gabor Mate's work and other people's work. So it really was the one that like broke ground with that. And we got lucky. I'm not going to, because it was right when social media was hitting its peak and before all the algorithms hoodwinked you with marketing. So it really connected with audiences organically just through social media,
Right.
Which if you do now, when I post my films, they just get blocked. Like I don't know if you guys notice that with social media, but it does it now. So if you post something personal and it tracks, it'll get tons of attention, right?
Yeah.
But if you try to promote something and you don't pay for it, it gets like 5 engagements, right? They just stifle it right away. So we released, we'd had a Facebook page when those were popular that it almost hit over 1 million people organically, just because it was the first time, you know, a cannabis community could come together. And we were filmmakers, so we weren't activists trying to push a narrative. We're just like, here's the stats. And we just constantly put articles about the drug war and things like that and how it was doing more harm than it was helping. And, you know, how it was putting people in a cage. If you do believe in the addiction route, how is putting somebody in a cage and giving them a criminal record helping them to get out of this hole, right? And really like, oh, so now you have a criminal record and you're battling addiction. Now come back to society, right? See how well that helps you. Yeah.
You got some, Trev?
Working on confirming this.
Okay.
Uh-oh.
Apparently, Calvin Pickard's starting in net tonight.
Okay, good.
Okay.
I think that's a good.
We called
that's a
that,
good
I think.
call.
I think.
He
we
played
called
fantastic.
He played
He saved the
fantastic.
game that
Yeah.
game.
Go with Pickard
Third
tonight.
period.
Skinner
I
against
think
Montreal.
Skinner, no
and
matter
then-
what.
And then, depending how that goes, we'll see who plays against Dallas on Saturday, right?
Yeah, I think Knobloch has to reward Pickard. And
He's outstanding against Carolina. That was
yeah, I thought
Someone on his head?
the third period. I didn't think Carolina did too much the first two periods, and we
Yeah.
had a guy who does their pre and post on Friday, and he's kind of like they're not scoring, like because they had 2 wins in their previous 8 or whatever.
Man, I
And
literally
he's like,
forgot Taylor Hall was on that team.
I didn't know that he was.
Like,
Got his
what
first
is that?
goal.
It's like
how many
8,
teams is
18?
that for the guy?
Yeah, that's tough.
he's at 7.
Wow.
So because he was Edmonton, New Jersey,
Hart winner, yeah.
Buffalo.
Buffalo,
That worked out
Arizona,
great.
Boston, Chicago, and now that's not the right order.
Well, there's that
Yeah.
there's that meme, right, where it shows it's like death, like going into all the different rooms in a trail of
Oh, yeah.
blood. It's got
There's
Taylor
Taylor
Hall's
Hall.
face.
yeah.
Every single one.
But
Yeah,
he, so I looked this up. Actually, it was during an intermission shortly after that trade happened, and I was talking to Tim Shipton, the Oilers.
Love Tim, yeah.
He's a
We're doing-
VP. I can't remember his exact title, but he's high up within OEG. But he's at all the games.
Yeah, it's Senior VP of Communications.
Yeah, and I think government relations is that
Yeah,
the other
yeah,
part
yeah,
of
yeah.
his
He
part
works
of
in
his
that too,
tag.
yeah.
But anyway, and we were like, which first overall pick has played for the most teams? We were like, it must be Hall. So I'm scrolling during the intermission. Do you guys remember Rod Ramage?
Yeah.
He was
No.
the first
Buffalo, I know
overall pick.
that.
He was a Colorado player. He won. Speaking of the Habs, he was on the '93 team, and he wound up with 8 teams, and he was the first overall pick. Like some guys got to a few because Nolan was first overall, right?
I
think he was.
Was he with the Nordiques first
not
overall?
And then like late in his career, he was one of those. He wound up
chase the
with
cup
like a
and try
year,
to
like
get- yeah.
but he got to 4 or 5. So anyway, that's trivia. Take that for trivia.
I like
today,
that.
everybody.
Yeah,
that's a good one,
Look up
buddy.
Rod Ramage.
Rob
But yeah,
Ramage.
I
all
did.
things.
That's a name I don't think I've heard.
I think I had
so,
the trading card when I was a kid, back when.
Well, he was like a defenseman.
yeah.
And yeah, by the time even like I don't think he even played regularly
He
with
was
the
like a
Habs,
Rod Langway,
but he
so-
was.
New one for me.
Yeah, it's a new
No,
one for
that's
me
not
too.
what
It's
Yeah,
a-
new one for me.
must be
That's
younger
okay.
than these
I'm
old
a-
dogs here.
I'm a wealth of useless knowledge.
No, you've got.
Well, I know
lots
I'm
of
older when I'm
useful
talking. What are some
knowledge.
like favorite players as a kid? Yaroslav Pozar, just for the name.
Oh, Pozar.
Pozar,
Yeah.
he was a
Pozar.
beauty.
That's good.
Never heard that one either.
Didn't he pass away a few years ago? I think he did.
Well, I know Klima.
Klima's
did.
passed away. Pozar.
No, I think Pozar's
Is
still
Pozar
alive
still
because
with us?
the
Okay.
only
But Klima's helmet lives on.
the only player from
you
the
got it?
'84
Yeah.
team that's passed is Semenko, of
Yeah,
course.
yeah.
Sadly. But I think the rest of
Which
the
is
team,
disappointing.
maybe I
because
was
we're-
thinking because maybe I was thinking of Klima. Yaroslav Pozar.
Pozar was number 10, I believe. I could be wrong.
Is with us.
Yeah.
He is. He recently turned 73. So my apologies to his family. Twice represented Czechoslovakia at the
Yeah.
Olympics, and he was inducted into the IIHF Hall of Fame last year during the 2024 World Championships.
nice.
Good for us. How many games did he actually play with the
Did he
Oilers?
just win the one cup with us or the 2? 84,
He
85? or
he
84?
played 186 NHL games. He was with the Oilers in 84 and 85, playing 14 and 9 playoff games respectively. And in 87, he played 5 playoff games.
not with the Oilers, so in 87. Or was
Yes.
he? Oh, really? He was with the Oilers his whole career?
Yes, I don't think he played for any other NHL teams.
Wow.
Hang on a sec here.
Pozar. That's a,
Oilers. Yeah, he never played anywhere else in the NHL. 186 games with the
so,
Oilers.
curiously, Reid, when you look there, do you go to Hockey DB or where do you go to?
This one's on Wikipedia. I should have
Oh.
gan to Hockey DB.
So
but
you
I,
do
but
use
I
it
wanted to
as an
re-
analyst. I use it for like that's like the go-to to find out like what
That's my
teams or
favorite.
goals. Yeah,
Yeah, and then
DB,
Hockey
yeah.
Reference is also good because Hockey Reference will give you the game log and the splits. So if you want to know how did a guy just do against Calgary,
Gotcha.
then you
Yeah.
can go to his split page Hockey Reference is pretty good because you can also just look at his scoring log. So if you want to know like when was the last time McDavid assisted on a Connor Brown goal, like you can look up all of Connor Brown's goals and go through the assists.
Interesting.
Anyway, hockey-reference.com. Fun rabbit
Interesting.
hole to follow. Trev, I'm hogging these guys.
No, you're all good.
What do you
Yeah,
got?
yeah.
And if you didn't believe your guy, you just argue the whole time.
Yeah, yeah.
I know I'm right.
Yeah.
Let's go to the library
That's
right
but
now
that's where
and
you.
figure this out.
That's for those guys that were like stat wizards
Yeah.
were like kings back then,
Oh,
right?
dude,
Where
totally.
now it's like everybody can just Google ChatGPT.
Yeah.
Very quick. Apparently Savoy is in as well. Jeff Skinner is out. Just curious, what are your guys' thoughts on Savoy? Are you liking? Do you think the Oilers should utilize him in the lineup? Should he spend some time in the farm a little bit more?
I don't think they should utilize him under the expense of Jeff Skinner. I don't.
I think that's.
I don't know what. So it's like earlier in the year, Nobby benches him because he can't play good defense. Then he's trying. He's getting the most points, like for the ice time he's getting, and he's still being punished. I don't quite understand what's going on there. I know he can't play in the bottom six.
Yeah.
If you're gonna play Skinner, you got to play him. But it's almost like to be a fly on the wall. I wonder what the relationship between Nobby and Skinner is. You know, like is he just not like him, or is he that much of a albatross to the team?
Well, it's weird because right before the break, the players were even talking about it. Draisaitl was talking about it, and he kind of leaned in on he doesn't have any playoff experience, but it's coming to the time where he's starting to show. You know, you can't just come in here and expect to be in the lineup every. You know, despite being 40-goal scorer, 80 points a few years ago. You know, he's going to have to play defense, which they talked about. He's starting to do that, and so everything's looking good. He gets out, and then he comes in, he scores, and then he's out again. But then he was starting to find some consistency in this game there right before the Four Nations face-off. And so everything's looking good. And then you're like, okay, he's found his game here. So then Four Nations is back. He's the first one. He wasn't playing. And it's kind of been you're in this game, you're out this game. I just find it's interesting. Like, as a player, I know some players are a lot easier with this, but when you're in one game and out one game, especially on a new team, it's hard to find chemistry. Especially up and down the line.
It's got to, I can't imagine what that, like, I don't know the Skinner conundrum. I was really excited when they brought him in, and it was interesting to see, like, even opposing teams were super happy for him, like Buffalo, and they were like, I want to see him do well. Like, he's been such a great part of our organization the past couple of years. So I don't know what's going on there. That's like, because what you hear from, again, I'm just going by, a couple dozen tweets I read, but it was interesting, like his time in Buffalo and Carolina, like he was a fan favorite. And they were all happy for him to see that he was finally going to get like some, playoff time and some success. So I don't know. It's got to be hard. I can only relate a little bit as my daughter plays high level, right? And you really see how tough it is for a player, even if they're very skilled. If you don't have a coach that believes in you, it can crush even like the best players, right? Like, this is something we learned in Ice Guardians, where every Ice Guardian that really found a career in NHL for a long time had at least one coach that's like, look, I need you to do more. I love the physicality and the passion you bring, but I need to hone you in to do more. Like LaRock had Ken Lowe. That's like, hey, and that's where LaRock was really good at boxing out down low, right? Making room and just dishing it out in front of the net, right? And he'd get a few assists and he'd put in a few goals. You had guys like Scott Parker, Joey Kosher even scored some big goals in the playoffs. Like you have to learn, but it took one coach to believe in them and say, hey, I see you more as just a pugilist, right? I need you to do, if you never given that, and you look at the time they're given too, like, Parker brought this up to me and he's like, people are like, oh, you didn't do much but other than fight. He's like, I was given sometimes 2 minutes a game. And they'd be like, go out there and do something. He's like, go do that to your first round draft pick. Go give him 2 minutes a game and say, go be explosive and do something. They're going to be invisible, right? He's like, so of course, a lot of times all we did is like, when I was my first game, I hardly got to play to the third period. And they're like, go do something. He's like, Twister, I need to look good. Like, Twister's like, you want this kid? He's like, nope, but I got to do something. I'm getting 2 minutes. I'm going to go back down to the minors. Really don't want it, but let's go. So it's so tough. I don't envy the players or the coaches. I don't have the right answer, but I've seen it on the amateur level too with my daughter, right? My daughter's a Cornell commit going to the Ivy Leagues, like incredibly hard. Only the top 5% get there. And then, she's always been like a top 5 scorer, but then she goes through spurts where she's not scoring and doubts herself. And why is the coach putting me here on the third line? I'm like, well, maybe they're trying to space out the power, not trying to put all but it's hard. And if you don't have a coach that believes in you, like I see it in the minors, so I can only imagine at the professional levels, like, You can take the most talented player, and if a coach has in their mind that you're not there, they write you off. Like it doesn't matter how hard you perform, you won't go there.
That Leon comment, one of you guys referenced it though, but that Leon that one day said, and this might have been 5 or 6 weeks ago now, and it was about Skinner, but he said something along the lines of, you know, you have to do the things that playoff teams do,
Yeah.
you know,
Right.
which was kind of like, okay, Jeff, like you've gotten 30 goals on teams that were going nowhere. We have higher standards here.
Yeah.
I thought that was an interesting comment, and something about the ice time and enforcers being challenged, because you can't just employ a guy to fight anymore.
No.
Like you know, that's been gone for probably a decade or longer now. Gazdic told a story to Jay and I a few months ago, and he said when Mac T was coaching for that half year or those few games or whatever before Todd Nelson fully took over, he said Mac T skated up to him at a practice after a game, and he's like, "Okay, coach wants to talk to me. I got to take some feedback here." And Mac T just comes up to him and goes, "You were terrible last night." Like just right away.
Yeah.
Like that's how direct it was. And Luke's like, okay. And he's like, and Mac T was basically like, look, you're a big guy. You have to at least protect the puck on the forecheck. Like it can't go into the corner and the other team comes out with it. You know, you at least have to hold it or make them earn it off you, you know, or force it to the net and get a face off. Like it can't just be they lift your stick and they're going the other way, you know? So I thought that was interesting. He wasn't saying I need you to score. He was saying, I at least need you to, that they can't get the puck off you, or it takes them 20 seconds and they're exhausted.
Great example. Gazdic's a great guy that had a solid career, right? That learned to do more. Great tough guy too, and I love him personally. He was in Ice Guardians, a good buddy.
Awesome.
I'm a big fan of Gaz. I love seeing every time he's on the TSN desk. I text him just like put a smile on my face. I love seeing you there. Yeah. But you know, again, you have to have that belief though, like because it doesn't. You can say create the mindset and everything, but if you're not given opportunity, if you don't have somebody else that believes in you, it'll crush your own, like however well you want to set yourself up. If you don't have somebody else saying like that, hey, I need you to work on this. I need you to do that. I believe I need you. The team needs you to do this, right? Yeah. And to do, then you can believe in it. You have to have, it's, I always say this too, when people come from lower economic situations or bad and they pull themselves into a different career. People are like, oh, you can see all the time people pulled themselves out of there. I'm like, but look at every single one of them had somebody give them a good moral compass. Right. Yeah. An uncle, a father, a mother, a coach. You can't do it on your own. This idea of pull up your bootstraps, just figure it out. Well, if your environment is shitty and no one's giving you a good moral compass, you can't figure that out, right? You have to have somebody help guide you, especially in your impressionable years as like a teenager or whatever. So athletes are no different, right? They need someone to give them that chance.
And when you're a competitor like Jeff Skinner, like we had Luke Gazdic on last week as well on the Nielsen show. He's like, yeah, like if that was me, I score a goal and they're like, hey, great job, you're sitting the next game.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that's got to mess with your mind, right? It's like, what else can I do? So there's clearly something there. I don't know. It's tough, but Jeff Skinner is out again.
I don't mind Savoy playing though.
I know. I'd like to see
great. And honestly, I think Skinner will just suck it up because he's this close to making the playoffs for the first time in his career. Whether he plays or not a game in the playoffs, he'll be, I did it. I'm here. You know, I can deal with this.
And let's be honest, Edmonton playoffs is a totally different monster than like you go to he played in Carolina playoffs the first couple rounds. I imagine that's like you yip-de-doo. You play Edmonton playoffs, like that is like. I explained to people, it's funny because even Jeff Jackson, I was talking to him, right, who played in the show and is now present, worked with McDavid. And he said, he's like, I didn't even realize what it was like in Edmonton, being a former player, even representing McDavid till I came as the president and I saw firsthand. He's like, we are like the Green Bay of hockey. There is, when we lose a game we should win, the city is depressed. Yeah. Like you go to get your coffee and people are like, what do you want? And you're like, dude, what are you like? It's like tough. It affects, like, whereas other cities don't care. Like the city of Edmonton is an underdog and our fans and the way we connect with the team is different than any other team. I think that's why people don't like Toronto so much, is it's such a corporate, like I've been to those games and it's like, people are like, oh, did someone score? Cool. Like a lot of people don't care what's going on. It's just to be the show. It's more like, let me take photos of me being here so I can say I was at a Leafs game rather than, and I'm not, yes, I'm sure Leafs fans are freaking out. There's diehards, but most of them can't afford to go to the games because it's so pricey now. So the true fans aren't going. So you're getting the corporate that's every time I've been invited, it's through like a film thing and nobody there. They're even like, oh, who's on this team? Like they don't care. Right. The only time that really gets their attention is if there's a fight. Then everybody's like, oh my God, they can do that? Like, ooh, look at, I hope he's not hurt. Right. Like that gets the inner instinct of humans attract to that. But Edmonton has a different, even my buddy who was talking about the top of the show is a dire Canucks fan. He will say that too, as much as he hates Edmonton as much as I hate Vancouver. So, but he will say, he's like, your guys' fans are something else. They are.
Yeah.
He's like,
yeah, they're insane.
Yeah.
Whether it was 06 or last year.
But I have a theory about it. Same with like the support my son's soccer team got, right? When you have 8 months of winter and you're in harder climates, I think it brings communities together in a way that I experienced this up in Rankin Inlet, right? Like, so they don't lock any of their doors, right? Because if it's too cold and they're in their cars, if there's an animal, like you can go into the cars, plus there's nowhere you can really go. There's like 5 roads, right? So you're not taking off to another city, but you see by the third time we went up there, everybody knew who we all were. Like you see the romance of why some people have these really fond memories, as dark and as cold and as harsh as the living conditions are in Rankin. A lot of people are like, oh, some of my best memories when they went up there to work for a few years, they really like it because the community is really connected. You have to be when it's in tough climates like that and it's tough times. Like shipments didn't come in. You're like, hey, we have no grocery things. And you support each other, right? And you don't quite get it as a small community as Rankin, but I think Edmonton has that too. And that's where I don't think my son's soccer team, had we done this in Kelowna where I'm from or something, I don't think they would have got the support. I honestly, I don't think they would have. But Edmonton has a different way of, you see it in our 50-50s, right? Like, I love that when you see this, when you see the Super Bowl and they're like, oh, whopping 250,000. We're like, dude, that's a Tuesday night against Columbus. Like,
I know.
Like 250,000. Like
the 50-50 is like, I like when there's visiting media, sometimes they'll be like, really? And so then Jay Onright, he told me a few years ago, this was even before he went to California, he went to a Blue Jays game and they had a little over 30,000. And he's like, I won the 50-50. And I was like, man, that's awesome. He's like, yeah, and like $9,000. Like, you know, like $9,000 is great.
Still great.
He probably, like, you're not going to turn down just $9,000. That's nice. But it's like, he's like, you know what? He's like, yeah, I know what your 50-50s are. Yeah. And at that time, I don't even know if the Oilers ones had taken off yet, because they didn't really start taking off till just before COVID.
Well, they always did, but they didn't expand them outside of the arena, right? They did it. Then they started getting up to like 6 million and stuff like that. Like, where now their charities are doing so good, they're like, we have to get other ones in there. Because
we got room.
Remember when the Esks had one, and theirs got to like 700, and a young guy won like 350. Because I remember Morley saying like, that's a house.
Yeah.
Like this 20, I think he was pretty young. I think he was early 20s. Like
21, if I remember.
Like Morley's like, that's his house. You know? So and then the Oilers, and you're right, because they expanded it online. But even the Flames can do it that, and theirs don't get as big.
No, that I honestly, there's something special about Edmonton. That's what makes you, because it isn't the weather that brings you here. It isn't the beautiful scenery that, like, obviously cost of living, let's just call it economics, is a big reason why they say Edmonton is the most affordable large city in Canada. I don't doubt it. We're up there as one of the best. Like, there's lots of job opportunity. It's what brought us here. Everybody's like, why did you move from Kelowna to Edmonton? Right. And it was like, well, schooling, cost of living, those things. We definitely do plan to retire in Kelowna, but I will always have like my business here, because like the media, the way it, like it works being in this, like, I know in the film industry, I like it because it's a much more blue collared approach. When I go to Vancouver and Toronto, it's much more of like, oh, like, what festival have you done? And I'm like, I don't care what, like, I get to make great movies. I get to travel the world and do cool things, and I can whoop your ass. I don't care what, like, I don't have, like, if you want to measure like your status or what you earn, like that, to me, that's as arbitrary as me measuring my physicality with you. But that, I get that feeling in Toronto and Vancouver much more, right? Is it's much more of this pompous. Even now, it was funny, I was working with some of my team and we were down in LA, and this big DOP that I work with, great guy, Emmy Award winner, he's like, man, I can't believe these LA prices, they're insane. I'm like, I think the same when I look at Vancouver and Toronto prices, when I see what DOPs and everything, because they're billing you their rent, right? So I'll get super talented creatives here, editors, DOPs, writers, and they're like 40% cheaper. And they're just, but there's this thing is like, well, you can't hire out of Alberta. I'm like, I've done it consistently, and I've broken records with Universal Pictures. I've done it. So that's nonsense, right? Get that out of your head of where you are geographically nowadays. Like, And you're probably see or even hearing this in the video, like hardly anything's shot in LA anymore because it's so expensive.
Oh, really?
And there's no tax credit. No, the studios are dead because so the big business in film now is tax credits, right? You get incentives. That's what brought me to Edmonton. And Alberta actually has, I'll say it great in some ways. So it's great that it's a 30% all spend if your key creatives are Albertan. All spend is great, meaning especially for docs. If we're filming in the UK or we're following Bisbing or if my team's Albertan, I get 30% of whatever I spent as a rebate, right? Whether we're traveling and that includes their flights, their hotels, their per diems. The only thing we don't get is meals, right? Whereas Ontario and BC, they're not an all spend, they're a labor spend. So you have to keep it within the province, which makes it tougher for docs. Where Alberta's gets hit is that ours is a finite amount. We only have so much every year. Like we have I think it's up now. It was 40, it's gone to 60. I think it's 100 million. So for me in the doc world doesn't usually become a problem. But if you do like The Last of Us or some other big shows, you can deplete that right away, right? Then there's none left. Whereas Ontario and BC are open all the time. If you bring the business there, you will always get a tax rebate. That's the international business of film now, is if you are bringing the work and you're employing, and it is one of the best ways to diversify your economy. This is something we're always pushing the Alberta economy. Is like, look, if you want to diversify, like oil and gas are number one, and it's going to be for another couple hundred years, despite what everybody wants. That's just the facts. For the energy needed, it's going to be. But if you want to diversify and not have to build a lot of infrastructure, film tax credit's one of the easiest one, because I hire you, Reid, I pay tax on you, I then do an audit to verify I paid you and paid that tax, then I get a rebate. So that money stays right here in the province, spent in the province, where a lot of other things that they lure is like, oh, we're diversifying. Well, not really. You have an offshore company in Ireland, the money goes there or it doesn't go here. This stays here, right? And you don't have to build, like, sure, building a studio and stuff would help. We don't have to. We have the geographical, like we have the mountains, you have glaciers in the summertime, so we can do snow all year round. We've got Drumheller that looks like Vegas and old Western towns. Like you've got where you can shoot.
That's pretty simple.
So that's where, and as competition, there's more content out there than ever before. So now if you're saving percentages, that's driving businesses here. They're like, okay, if I'm going to spend, just to say for simple math, $1 million movie, but I can get 30% on the province and I can get another 10 to 12% on the feds. That's 40% of it's 400,000. Why would you shoot in the United States when you get nothing unless you go to Georgia or some of the ones that's why you see the big peach at the end, right? Because they offer a tax credit. Everybody's doing if you're not doing tax credits now, that so California doesn't offer anything. So people are like, why are we shooting there? The studios are 10 times more expensive. Everything's more expensive and we get no rebate. Like, unless you're doing a giant Hollywood movie where just simplicity of the actors are all there, where the money doesn't, tax credits don't really matter. But if you're doing anything indie that isn't like funded by Marvel, to not do it is like, but even then you see Marvel always has, you'll see Quebec because they offer because they offer a huge tax credit on animation and stuff like that. It's like 65%. And you'll see Ontario and you'll see, that's how Canada's industry survives. When our dollar is weak, that the amount you get on the US dollar and the tax credit, that brings you to Canada instantly. When our dollar goes par, then our industry's crying like, we need subsidies, right? We need, because everybody goes back to the States.
This is everything you got to know to produce a film.
Fascinating
It's not just like,
well, you have to learn.
I bought some new cameras, guys. You got to know all this other stuff.
No, well, this is where my term, the creative hustler, like, it's the biggest disconnect with filmmakers is they're like, I just want to be creative. I'm like, well, you better learn how to do the business, because it doesn't operate on just being creative, right? You have to have, if you're just a creative, hire a fantastic producer that can navigate this for you, right? Because it is a business first. And that's how I've been able to turn it into a business versus a hobby, is that when I show these numbers and I show people what they're getting back and everything, they're like, that makes sense. I will invest in that. Instead of saying, please give me $500,000 and hopefully we make something awesome and hopefully we recoup your money.
See, the first thing I say if a younger person says to me, I want to get into broadcasting and do what you and Jay and Hernan and Dustin, everybody here, you do. And they expect me to say, well, learn sports stats, or, I always say, learn proper spelling and grammar.
No, it's very true.
That's the first thing I say. Anyway, that's a bit of an aside.
Well, mine sucks. I use ChatGPT to make me look literate. So,
well, that's good. Okay, this is flying by. You guys are awesome. So we're sort of in the last. If this were the Super Bowl, there'd be about 10 minutes left in the fourth quarter.
Okay.
So I want to get back to your store, the lobby. So if people haven't gone, I recommend it. Spend money. But if you don't, it's almost like being a tourist in your own city. So can you just paint the picture for people when they go, where are you? When they go downstairs in that building and go into your store, what are they going to see?
You're walking into a time capsule, basically. You're walking into nostalgia for the sake of nostalgia, and you're walking into an escape from, world's a crazy place, man. When you walk down my store, there's a sign made out of a VHS tape that says, listen, no religion talk, no politics, only movie nerd talk, all right? The world's screwed up as it is, because I know my regulars after many years. I could have a dude who I know is like a right-wing Trump MAGA guy, whatever, and somebody else is also in my store who's maybe like a progressive left-wing vegan, whatever. But they don't know that about each other because all they're allowed to do is argue about which Friday the 13th sequel is the best one. See, they have more in common than they think, and that's the beauty of the video store. Cool. You come in, and we just shoot the shit, man. I mean, here's the difference between streaming and going to a physical media place. You're at home, you're taking 45 minutes, flipping through your Netflix, like, I don't know what to watch. And you end up watching something you've seen a million times, or if you hit something and you're not doing it within 5 minutes, you're like, screw it, I'll get back to it another time. You know what? You never will. Check your continuing watching list. I'm like, I don't even remember starting that. You go to the effort to come to my shop. Baby love, you sit there for 45 minutes, look at the covers, you're perusing, you're like, I think I'm going to rent 3 movies this weekend. You might have picked the 3 worst movies of all time, but you know what? You're going to watch them all. And you know why? Because, A, you got to return them to me. And B, that way you can vent to me. Why would you let me rent these? They were like, let me tell you, sit on my couch. Let me tell you why you should appreciate these movies more than you should. I think people love, it's like going to a record shop or anything like that. They just, it's a social community thing too. Right. Every time people come in, even if they don't grab anything, they're like, thank God you're around still, man. Like, I had a bad day, but you totally distracted me for the next half an hour. What's playing on the TV right now? Well, I'm watching some Gene Hackman this week. Like, oh, yeah. And just random strangers talking. And it's kind of like this, right? Whether it's sports or movies. But, every year we got the Fringe, right? So we got guys from all over the world coming to town. There's always a dude from like New Zealand coming in. Oh, thank God you're still here. Like they always remember my store very distinctively. I remember, so I was working one night at the Black Dog, Matty Green, former Oiler. I think he was working for the Kings at the time. I'm sitting there setting my DJing stuff, and he's sitting where I DJ, and I didn't know who he was because I hadn't seen him. I met Matt Green once through Yukon Jack, and I was at Filthy's days. But me and Matt, we just talked about TV shows and movies and nerded out, which he loved. He didn't want to talk about sports. So anyways, he's sitting there. I'm like, dude, can you move? Like, or something. He looks at me, he goes, Kev, it's me. And I'm like, Matt Green. And I'm like, oh, hey, man, because let's be honest, a lot of the hockey dudes, they all kind of look the same after a while. Big, handsome, usually with a beautiful woman beside him. And he remembered me, which I thought was really, now I'm a unique, odd looking fellow like Steve Buscemi and Fargo, but he remembered me because nerd talk is a powerful thing, right? And actually, that was a year where he was still working with the Kings, but he wasn't playing that much. He was scratching night. The Kings won the cup that year. I think it was 2012 or 14, whenever your last cup was. Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, it's amazing. People of all walks of life, how you can connect with them, like that. I thought when I opened up 20 years ago, my average demographic was going to be 18 to 25-year-old males because, like, people come to me for messed up movies like, have you got Cannibal Holocaust? I sure do, pal. Come with me. But no, man, I got retired couples. I got professional couples. And obviously, I remember I had Henry Rollins come in the store. He was in my store for like 2 hours when we brought him as a guest at our film fest, right? And he was enamored by it. So every time we bring a guest from, like, when we had our film festival, they're like, they don't care about the festival. You have a video store? Yeah, it's right down the street. I need to see this. Bobcat Goldthwait, when we had him as a guest, he was, his first movie ever made was Shakes the Clown. That was Adam Sandler's first movie. And at the time, he's like, I can't find a copy of my movie anywhere. And he's from LA. I'm like, dude, it's in my store. He's like, what? And I'm like, yeah. So I got it for him. He's like, how much owe you? I'm like, dude, you made the movie. Here you go. He was just blown away. Like, you have it. And I come to Edmonton, Canada to find a copy of my movie in a video store. I can't find it in LA anywhere. I'm like, that's what I'm here for.
Yeah.
So when I talk about your store, I often say horror because
I get labeled that way,
I shouldn't do that, right? Because
it's a genre store and a store that, yes, it's about, I understand people think I'm a horror movie store. It's about 50%.
Okay.
But on the same note, I've helped parents find copies of Seasons of Sesame Street because they can't find them anywhere. I'm like, I don't have it, but I'll bring it in for you if you need it, man. Like I was mentioning earlier, I mean, Spice Roll is like my best-selling movie this year. Go figure.
I'm curious, Kevin, where do you order from now? Where do you get physical?
It's a distribution company. They're located in Ontario, but they're tapped into all the
what are they called?
KRK Media.
Yeah.
And they're in Kitchener, but they're tapped into all like the labels. Like, so I get my stuff from like, Arrow Video, Imprint, all UK, Australia, the US. I get nothing from Canada anymore. We don't have the selection. I got cats that work at Sunrise Records that call me to see if I can get something for them because they can't get it.
No,
we're Canadian distribution.
Our Canadian distribution is like, I don't want to go on, but it's you basically have like E1 and Elevation, and their whole business is just take Marvel in Canada, take the big ones in Canada. So like I'm not shocked that you're like the guy, because that's why I ask, because it's an interesting time for indies. It is honestly like indie feature films are in real trouble the next 5 to 10 years. And here's why. I don't want to take away from your video store. I love but I love that you're doing this, because I'm hoping that there's a resurgence, because there is a call, and that's how Tarantino started too, right? With him and his writers, they had a video store and could connect and show people that there is definitely something special to that, because what's getting lost in film is everything, like I said at the top, is analytics and numbers now, right? Yeah. So you go to make an indie film now, even if the script is amazing, the business is going to say, who's attached to get the money? You're like, no, but this won like the Oscars of script writing. They're like, don't care. We need somebody that like, from 18 to 35, if I say their name to 9 out of 10 people, they know them. That's bankable. Some people are, because people are like, well, what about so-and-so actor? I'm like, no. Like Steve Buscemi's a great character actor. He ain't going to bank your movie, right? Like they're going to want somebody big to do that. And then you have to so if you're an indie filmmaker, even if you've got all the skill, like no actor is going to take that chance on you, right? To go. And then it's kind of the chicken before, like, how are you going to get them attached to go get the money that you need to make it, right? And then even if you make a great film, you do it all right, and it turns out beautifully and you edit it, well, now you got to spend more than you spent making it to break through what's going on now, because most people are just going to go to their Netflix. Yep. And if it's not a Netflix original, like even now people are like, oh, is your stuff on Netflix? I'm like, no, it's on Amazon. Like, it's like, if you're not at Netflix or Amazon, it's like you don't exist. Yeah. We're like, no, we're on transactional. Right? People are like, what does that mean? Like, I usually at the film festival, I'll get everybody, I'm like, who here is under the age of 25 has bought a movie in the last 3 years? And people be like, you mean on Netflix? I'm like, no, that definitely no. Right. And there's like 5 people that put up their hand. They're like, you mean go to the theater? I'm like, no, I mean, you went to your cable provider, Crave, TELUS, and you rented a movie, or you went to a video store, you got it. It's usually in a crowd of hundreds, like less than 5. Yeah. So if you make a great movie, unless it has the marketing dollars to break through the plethora of content, and you're not just competing against series on Netflix or Amazon or big movies, you're now competing because the younger generation watches TikTok and YouTube and short form content. You're competing against them. That's what my kids, now we've made it a special thing where I'm like, guys, we're going to put away all electronics and we are going to watch a movie. And they're like, my youngest gets all excited, right? Because it's on an adventure. But they're like, it is a thing because and what we're fighting against as filmmakers, me as a documentarian too, is that your short form content is triggered in algorithms like gambling. Right. So it is hard to pull them away, right? Because there's always incentives for new content. Yeah. So even if you do everything right now for the movie, how does it break through? I was an executive producer on a great film that my buddies, the trailer just released yesterday, wrote from a script that won like it was in like top 5% on the blacklist. It's called Island Between Tides. I think they just changed it to The Island. And like, it's going to have a tough time recouping, even though it's a great film. It's a mythical. It's based on an Alfred Hitchcock story that never got made, and they got the rights. It's got a really cool premise where this island in between the bays, like you lose time. You go on there and years go by, right? And it's kind of a mythical thriller, but great film for their first, like everyone thinks they spent 5 to 10 million. They did it for 3 in Canada, but it's good. Like, they're going to need 3 to 4 million just to market it, right? And it's got Donald Logue in it. It's got great actors. It's put together beautifully, but there's so much content coming out. Is how do you break through? And that's where I really feel indie films like, and I don't mean like Tarantino's last film or something like those aren't really indies anymore, right? Even Robert
what
Rodriguez.
about this
will-
movie that won Best Picture?
Well,
they're
Nora.
selling. They're trying to say that's an independent.
Yeah,
film.
well, it's sort of Sean Baker. That's why he just won more Oscars in one night than Spielberg won his whole career.
Right.
He won 4 Oscars in one night. That's
So is that, do you consider that an independent film though, or is it sort of?
it is independent, but like that one that had a lot of buzz throughout the year. You know. Also, the actress she beat Demi Moore, which I'm bummed out about.
I bummed out. I
Yeah.
thought
I was rooting for the substance
So
big
was I,
time.
yeah.
But here's a lesson. If you want to make sure your actor or actress wins an award, have them play the role of a sex worker. So in the history of the Oscars, 97 years, 23 times has there been a nomination for an actor playing a sex worker. All women except for John Boyd, Midnight Cowboy as well.
He won though.
Yeah.
12 or 13 of them have won Oscars. So next to playing a soldier or cowboy or a mafia guy, sex workers, that's how you win the Oscar. You know?
Damn,
Yeah,
really?
or
That's
playing a real person.
Well, and it's
Hollywood
interesting-
loves the sex workers.
Yeah, that's- I never saw
because
that.
my wife and I just watched The Substance, and
so good,
we
dude.
wanted, and it was funny because she didn't like, she likes her, but she didn't like that. Like I really liked it because I liked how like different it was. Like
Yeah.
right away, I could tell her style. I was like, ooh, she's not gonna like this because the kind of like the odd polish to it and the weird kind of like. But it was. I now I understood. I didn't understand why Demi was getting so much buzz because she's an amazing actor. You forget how many great films she'd been in.
Yeah.
But then I saw like the wrist. I'm like, oh wow, she's exposing her.
She
like,
went for it.
And like,
Yeah,
in
she
her
went for it.
60s, I don't know. You're a like I don't know if any other female in her 60s that was a heartthrob has been willing to put them. I mean, she still looks incredible for her age,
Absolutely.
but that's hard to expose yourself like physically as she is. Like that is very tough. And then ultimately, they almost say like the premise of that film is almost like what happened.
Yeah. The younger-
like the younger
actress
and almost
won.
looks similar to her when she was young. I think Demi is more beautiful personally,
Yeah.
but I was like, wow, that's a twist of fate
I only
there.
knew the one that won the actress. I knew her from Tarantino's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Yeah.
She's the one that Brad Pitt picks up and brings to the Spawn Ranch.
Yeah.
Right, and Margaret is it Margaret
Yeah,
Qualley
yeah.
is
Oh,
in
that's who
is
she
in
is? Oh,
yeah,
is in
okay, I didn't
Hollywood
know.
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood as well.
I didn't
The younger
recognize her
version
at
of
all,
Demi
yeah.
and the Substances.
Oh, right. Yeah. From the substance. Sorry. Yeah, that's what I
But
meant.
no, but Mickey, what's her name? The one
she
that
was in the. She was in.
she was in
Tarantino.
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood too.
She was one of the Spawn girls.
Yeah,
or-
I can't remember, but they were both.
Yeah.
Okay,
it's-
we're in the last 5 minutes. Any quick hitters from questions?
No questions.
Do you
Just
have
lots
any
of love.
questions?
Just lots of love.
Well, it's been fun.
Great show.
Do you have a letterbox account? Somebody wants to know.
I do. I haven't touched it in years, though. I got to be on. Guys, I'm so social media brutal, but on Instagram, I'm Video Store Kev. It's I just like posting every day. Hey, guys, here's what I'm watching today.
Oh yeah, you have a good account.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, where's the store? We didn't give the
Oh,
address.
right, yeah. It's in the hub. The only place a store like this could survive, it's on White Avenue. White Avenue, 108th Street. It's a basement store. Right beside the Royal Bank Canada, so get some cash first, then come visit.
You give the address because some people
10815 82nd Avenue.
go downstairs.
Go downstairs.
10815 82nd Avenue.
And if it says I'm out for lunch, just go down the street to Black Dog. That means I'm having a pint and taking a break, so you can.
so what
me
are, what
there.
are your hours as needed?
Noon-ish till 6:30-ish.
Okay,
Yeah, that about sums it up. That about sums it up as far as that goes.
every day of the week.
Every day of the week, yeah. Well, I have a
you're
friend
off
who's
today?
watching the store for me on
This is amazing.
Tuesdays.
So you just have a buddy run the store
yeah,
for
he
you.
helps me out. So
How many
you know.
movies do you have in there?
I think, well, you can rent or you can buy. So I bring about 120 new ones in every week. I drop about
wow.
$5,000 a week on inventory. So I'm a terrible businessman. I'm just too big of a movie nerd. But I think it's hovering around 11 to 12,000 titles.
And is there not a little VHS room now?
Yes, people kept donating VHS tapes to the store, and they were piling up on my staircase. So we opened up a back room. So there's like a mini video store in the video store. And every time I get a new batch in, it's all 16 and 17-year-old kids that go nuts for the tapes. And I'm like, do you even own a VCR? And they're like, dude, I'll get one at a pawn shop. Like, we'll get a tube TV as well, too, all right?
Yeah.
We'll be hooking up no flat screen. Yeah, VHS, Blu-ray, 4K, you name it.
Yeah, I brought a bunch of VHS in a
appreciate
couple
it,
years
buddy.
ago when I was moving. Yeah.
Be
So
kind,
they're in that
rewind. That
room
was
now. And are you running that room, or does somebody else run that
Oh,
room?
no, it's all one beautiful room. So, yeah.
Well, I thought it was off to the side
Well,
of
it is off to the side. I kind of multitask, you know. But now when I got the new room, I've left the store and locked it up, thinking nobody was in my store. I've locked customers in because I'm like, oh shit, there's still somebody in there because I'm not used to that. Yeah, it was the weird. Yeah, you know, it's an adjustment, Reid. It's an adjustment.
Okay, and how do people find you were in a film?
Yeah.
The Last Video Store. It's amazing. How do people find that?
The last video store. Well, there's physical releases through. Well, if you live in the U.S. or the U.K., it's on Arrow Video and it's streaming down there. Here in Canada, physical release is coming out March 15th. Again, it should be in Sunrise and my store and all that.
That's like next week.
Wow, it is too.
Yeah.
Rock and roll. Just come find out my store. And like I was saying earlier, I believe it's going to be on streaming, possibly on Super Channel later this year.
Love that Super Channel's doing that.
Yeah.
There,
Before I get to Adam again, I want to remind everybody the official drink of the EST Hangout is the Finnish long drink. Are these ornamental or can people have these?
Yeah, if you'd like, you can have it.
Legend of 1952, a drink unlike any other. They're not refrigerated though.
No.
Sparkling refreshment, real liquor, longdrink.com/Canada. Okay, I did all these, Trev.
You got them. Are you going to throw them at the
I
camera?
did my job. Does Maddie throw? I'm not throwing them at the
Oh,
camera.
okay.
And Adam, okay, so Super Channel has all of your stuff. Is Tutu the most recent one, or have you pumped out something since then?
Well, Thunder, The Life and Death of Arturo Gatti is out now too. That's
Boy,
on
I watched
streaming.
that.
That's on stream. That was
Did
out
you
a
give me
while
in
ago.
advance?
Yeah, I did. I give you an advance.
Did
I
I
give you
get
the
lucky
screening.
stuff?
Yeah. So that's out on streaming now too on Amazon. It's 3-parter.
Well, that is amazing.
True
by the way.
crime. Yeah, sad what happened to Arturo there. Definitely didn't get the justice. And clearly, for those that know a little bit about Arturo, he did not hang himself in Brazil. That's very clear. In the
That's
evidence,
very clear.
it's very clear.
That was that's a great. It's 3 parts. It's interesting because people who know Adam will associate him with the sports stuff or athletes. That is, yes, it's a boxer. That is a crime series.
It's a true crime. It is definitely. It's our first.
Amazing.
It's our first true crime. We tackled it, and it's arguably some of our best work. It's but it's weird when you don't have a streaming service pick up a 3-parter. Like, it really has been tough to find its place online. We've actually been looking to maybe just condense it into a feature because it's hard to put things online if it's not streaming, right? 3-parters work great on Netflix. They don't work great outside of Netflix, right? It's weird. People just don't. They're like, pay $1.99 for 3 episodes and
They work
stuff.
great on a physical media.
Yeah.
I think you
How
guys are gonna.
How many of your docs have been released on physical?
I know for sure, like Union, Culture High,
Yep.
Ice Guardians.
Ice Guardians, yep.
And I believe that's it. I don't know if the other ones have been released on physical media.
Gotta fix it.
Yeah.
More directors. That's why I love how directors like Mike Flanagan are speaking out like with Netflix. So
Yeah.
they're like, hey, I want my stuff on a 4K release. I'm a
Yeah.
filmmaker. I grew up in video stores. I want it. And then he left. And now he's with Apple TV. But they're finally releasing some of his stuff.
There's a challenge with that for sure. Like it's, I think I'm hoping to see more stores like you do well and some of them come back a little bit because even us, and we're trying to find stuff that we're editing into our docs. We go to you guys to be like, hey, like we're doing Dolph Lundgren's, like, do you have Masters of the Universe and Blu-ray, right? Because like no distributors, like we don't know who has the rights anymore. It's here or there.
By Come in Peace coming in this
Yeah,
week.
do you? Yeah.
Yes, yeah, I think
That's what I'm talking
you
about.
guys
And you leave in pieces. Yeah.
Thanks for coming. I could go hours with you guys. I love both you guys. He's Adam Scorgie. This is Kevin Martin. The Lobby on White Ave. Look for the Biff Naked documentary as well. That's coming out soon.
Yeah, Biff.
That was a great show, guys. Thanks
YouTube,
for
Trev.
joining. That was awesome.
No,
seriously,
our
I'm not
pleasure.
gonna lie.
Yeah.
I was taken back.
This was
I was just
incredible.
sitting back and
Cheers,
like
man.
listening the whole time. That was
Well,
great.
we should do it again.
We got the
Yeah.
Lock Shop coming up. What is it today? 2 guys and a goalie.
Lock Shop.
is at noon. Hernan and Gager at 1. Jay and I are at 3. I had an absolute blast with Kevin and Adam. We'll talk to you later this afternoon.
Let's go. There you go, right in front of the camera.
First time guest, long time listener, fan of the original draft commissioner.
Welcome to the EST Hangout presented by White Claw Hard Seltzer. The difference is clear. Matt Iwanek, Tom Zola with you.